Time is 9:30. I'll call the meeting of the Millcreek Township Board of Supervisors for the May 14th meeting. We'll call to order. If you would please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Before we begin, as a reminder that this meeting is recorded. We have video and sound recording, and that these will be replayed on Millcreek Government Channel, Channel 1025 on Spectrum, and also available on YouTube. Both networks have the closed captioning, that is, for those who may have hearing difficulties or impairments. All you have to do is turn that feature on your device, whatever, your phone or your tablet or your television. So moving on to item number 3, public comment on agenda items other than development or rezoning applications. Do we have anybody who wish to speak about agenda items? Okay, being noted, there are no individuals requesting to speak. Item number 4, approval of minutes. We have 2 meetings here, gentlemen. Any additions or corrections? We'll take separate actions here on these, if you don't mind. The first meeting was a special meeting we held on April 23rd prior to the regular meeting at 7 o'clock. This was a 6 o'clock meeting, special public hearing.
I make a motion to approve the special meeting minutes from April 23rd.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
And I also vote yes. And then our regular meeting at 7 p.m., regular public meeting.
I move to approve the minutes from the regular meeting on April 23rd.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, moving on, approval of the bills. Got a chance to look at all the bills that the township pays here in the last couple of weeks. Questions or comments? If not, I'll need a motion to act on those.
I'll make a motion to pay the bills.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, moving on to item number 6, which is bids and quotations. We have quite a few. Tree removal requests. This comes from the Public Works and Streets Department. Gary Snyder.
Good morning, gentlemen. The first removal I have is we have 2 trees at 4022 Feidler that we'd like to have removed. Both these trees are rotted in the center, and one of them is starting to split. They are in the right-of-way. We received 3 quotes. First one was from Thomas Tree Service for $1,995. The second one from Leopold Tree Service for $1,700. And third from Dibble Tree Service for $1,650. It would be my recommendation that we have Dibble Tree Service remove these 2 trees for $1,650.
Okay, comments from the board? Being none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the contract with Double Tree Service for $1,650.
Okay, do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, the next one comes, I'll take care of this one here. This is from the from the Parks and Recreation Department as in regard to the... I think we have one. Oh, I'm sorry, Gary. Pardon me for interrupting you there. Go ahead.
The second one we have, we'd like to have 7 trees removed in the Brentwood Hills subdivision.
Okay.
A lot of these trees were hit by the oarworm. They're ash trees.
Oh, okay.
There were a couple that also are rotted off right at the base of the trees. And then one of them was hit by a car and broke over onto the sidewalk area.
Okay.
We received 3 quotes. First one from J. Thomas for $1,770. The second one from Dibble Tree Service for $1,550. And Leopold Tree Service for $1,000. All of these trees are in the right-of-way, and I would recommend that we award this to Leopold Tree Service for $1,000.
Okay. Okay, any questions or comments from the board? Just for clarification, Gary, not to belabor it, you said these were ash trees, then they suffered from the emerald ash borer,
yes,
which, as we know, has been a problem here for several years, and we're aware of that there are trees out there. So this is taking care of some of them. So with that said, do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the contract with Leopold Tree Service for $1,000.
Okay, do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
And Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay. Okay, sorry for that interruption there, Gary. Moving on, Millcreek Golf and Learning Center, security upgrades. This comes from the Parks and Recreation Director, Ashley Marsteller. Give me a second to find it. This is in regards to surveillance cameras for the golf course. As people know, we've had some vandalism and malicious activity going on at the golf course. So to enhance the security for that, we're purchasing cameras to achieve that. And we've got some prices here. Give me just a second. From Whitetail Security, we have a price of $3,580 for the cameras. From New Century Security Company, $6,855. We did make a call into Wilkins Security. They did not give us a price. And Kubinski Business Machines also offers security cameras. We got a price from them at $7,890. So therefore, it appears that the low qualified bidder is Whitetail Security at a price of $3,580.76. And with that, I'll make that as a form of a motion for to approve that purchase. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
Mr. Graham, a quick question.
sorry.
About the bids. Were those for the exact same kind of system, or I noticed that the prices are quite different?
Yes, there is quite a difference right there. I don't have all of the information on this. It was just handed to me because there was a tie-up because of Kubinski not submitting a bid there until this morning, so.
I can add a little bit. I talked with Ashley Marsteller, our director, just minutes prior to the meeting, and she related that some of the discrepancy with the bids were due to the fact that they are different camera systems with each company. Some can utilize fewer cameras with a broader range. It's just a matter of different features on each, but they each accomplish, excuse me, the same goal of what we want to do.
Okay, just want to make sure as long as Ashley's comfortable with it.
Yes, yeah, just as an example, the new camera we have here from WQLN, which records our show, that's a camera right there, and it gives, if you ever watch the rebroadcast on a government channel, it's amazing, the clarity and how wide of an angle it takes on that, so. Anyway, I made a motion. Jim, you had a second on that?
I seconded, yes.
Okay, Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Okay, Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, our next one is from the Planning and Development Department, GIS software upgrade services. Ann or John, who wants to take that?
Yeah, this is for our sanitary sewer office. There's recently been updates published for the ArcGIS Enterprise and Lucidity, which are two software packages that are utilized to manage the sanitary sewer GIS now. Dave Wright, our sanitary sewer technical manager, has requested that Savage Tribe LLC be hired to install the updates and necessary patches to ensure such database is compatible and properly linked so that the system functions properly.
Okay.
Savage Tribe has previously performed this service for the Sewer Authority, and the services are provided at an hourly rate of $150 an hour with a not to exceed a limit of 8 hours, or $1,200. The expense will be charged to the Sewer Revenue Fund. There are sufficient funds in the Sewer Revenue Office Supplies and Expenses account. And since this service is crucial to ensuring the integrity of the data and GIS following updates and patches, it's recommended by the Department of Planning and Development that Savage Tribe LLC be hired at a rate of $150 per hour with a not to exceed amount of $1,200.
Okay, that's a recommendation there. from the
That's my
plan. Okay.
recommendation.
Okay, any questions or comments from the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the upgrade, the GIS software upgrade services.
Okay, do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, our next item is engineering services for stormwater overflow basin, is planning and development.
Okay, this one is the department solicited proposals for engineering services to explore the feasibility of constructing a stormwater overflow basin adjacent to the unnamed tributary to Wilkins Run that flows between West 28th Street and West Ridge Road to the west of McKee. The proposals were to perform work in 2 phases. The first phase would be the required investigation and testing to determine if the basin is feasible in that location and that it would provide sufficient amount of storage capacity. If the Phase 1 report indicated a basin is feasible, Phase 2 would involve developing a design for said basin and providing the contract documents required to fit it out. We did send out proposals to several firms because of the aggressive schedule and how busy they were at this point in trying to secure subcontractors to do the borings. They were unable to meet the aggressive schedule. We are now preparing an addendum to receive quotes to possibly get the work done next year, but get the investigative work done this year.
Okay.
Yeah, the challenge that we had was the schedule was so aggressive to try to meet the time period where work is allowed under our DEP permit. And unfortunately, it was too aggressive for any of the engineering firms to actually ultimately get us a design within the time frame yet necessary to get the work done this year.
Okay.
Mark and Ms. Sokol, I know that was the action approved at the special meeting on the 23rd with the intention of having this pre-engineering done so that we could possibly construct the basin, if feasible, next year. Would that also push back our construction schedule, or would we still be able to, if recommended,
We would be able to construct in the spring.
of next year? Okay, so in the event that it is feasible, it wouldn't push us back too far as the construction timeline we expressed at that meeting?
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Correct. We were attempting to see if we could get it in this year yet, but just the timing just wouldn't work out.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, these things do happen sadly, but, you know, we'll get around it.
Thanks, Ann.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, I'll call for a motion on this.
Well, is there
I don't think we
motion
need to
necessary?
take any action at this point. There's
Oh,
nothing to
okay.
approve.
Okay, that's right. Okay, moving on. Stormwater Program Study Contract Award. Once again, planning and development.
Okay. On April 9th, 2019, the board approved an agreement with Erie County to provide grant funds from DEP Growing Greener and TZM grants, as well as Erie County Gaming Revenue Authority grant totaling $91,323.57. These funds are to be used to perform a stormwater program study to determine the township's stormwater needs and explore a sustainable funding model to provide those services. The Planning and Development Department requested and received a proposal from Wood Environmental and Infrastructure Solutions to perform the study in 2 phases. Phase 1 would examine the township's current stormwater efforts, determine future needs, and recommend a level of service to meet those needs, and explore the most cost-effective manner to provide that level of service. Phase 2 is an optional phase that can be added by the board following Wood's report of their findings and is dependent on the funding model the township wishes to pursue. Wood's price proposal for Phase 1 is $91,395, nearly all of which will be covered by the grants assembled by the County Department of Planning and Economic Development. Our recommendation, dealing effectively and efficiently with stormwater is an important function of the township. Determining what we are doing right, what we could be doing better, and the cost of complying with increasing state and federal water mandates is a worthwhile effort. It is the recommendation of the Planning and Development Department that the board hire Wood Environment and Infrastructure Solutions for Phase 1 of the Stormwater Program Study at the contracted price of $91,395. Additional services may be added at the hourly rates listed in the proposal, subject to the approval by the board. We would also ask that the motion include authorizing the chairman to sign the contract with Wood pending final review and recommendation of the contract language by the solicitor.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Comments?
The other comment I'll have, Mr. Grow, is I think this is certainly a worthwhile effort to study the stormwater infrastructure of the township and potential funding solutions for it. I also want to take an opportunity, in the audience today, we have 3 council members, Councilman Andre Horton, Councilwoman Kathy Vatica, and Councilman Carl Anderson. Did I miss any other county officials in the audience today? Well, I want to actually thank them. It was the County Department of Planning that helped us coordinate the funding for this effort. So if you could please pass our thanks on to your excellent staff at the Planning Department, and thank you for providing that service for us.
Okay. Yes, stormwater has been a problem, as we know. Just watch the news. Every time it rains, there's a problem. So hopefully we're heading in the right direction, which I believe we are. We have commitments to take it in the right direction and solve these problems. So with that said, call for a motion on this contract award.
I will move to approve the contract award with Wood Engineering and authorizing the chairman to sign off on that contract for a price not to exceed $91,395
Okay,
for
do
the
I hear a
initial
sec-
contract.
I'm sorry, do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, next item is Millcreek Police Department. They have some weapons there, arms that they would like to dispose of. And so
Yes,
I turn
sir.
that over to you, and Jim, you know about it.
Thank you, John. Yes, this is, comes from our Police Chief Scott Height. The authorization to dispose of 2 Blazer SIG .308 caliber rifles to Keystone Armory for $1,750 per rifle. The term disposal is a little bit misleading in this case. It's just a matter of we're going to be selling these rifles to the Keystone Armory, which is a federal firearms licensed dealer. We did solicit 4 bids. Keystone Armory for, the bid was submitted for $1,750 per rifle. There were 2. Armando's Gun Shop submitted a bid for $1,025 for one and $1,050 for the other. Presque Isle Gun Shop, no bid, and Gorn Flow Company, no bid. So the high bidder for these 2 rifles was Keystone Armory, and they are interested in purchasing these rifles. These are rifles that have basically reached their end of the lifespan for our use, and we did purchase updated, newer model rifles for our officers. So it's make a motion to approve that sale to Keystone Armory, the high bidder.
Okay, do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes on that. Okay, next item is sale of used equipment and a vehicle for Public Works. Gary?
Yes, we're seeking permission to sell a 1994 white GMC truck with salt spreader, VIN number 5431, for $1,999. A second 1994 white GMC truck with salt spreader, VIN number 5433, for $1,501. And a gasoline-powered air compressor with a rusted-out tank for $250. To Brian Klingensmith from Conneaut Lake, PA. This will clear our antique stuff from off the side hill.
Okay, that sounds good. And of course, these are all as-is.
Right.
No warranties expressed, and that's obvious, but, okay, any questions or comments from the board? Being none, I'll make that motion to approve that sale of those items that are listed. I hear a second.
Gary, I apologize if you mentioned this. These were advertised at one point, though? I know
Correct.
we did advertise everything that was out there and
Yes,
didn't get any
everything
bids,
was
so,
was
okay.
advertised.
All right.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay, Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, moving on to item number 7, which is, there's 2 rezoning classification changes, public hearings on it. Give me a second to pull them up here.
Julie's covering those today. in Matt's
Yes,
absence.
righto, yep. Okay, the first one is for Robert Sessler for property at 1647 West Gore Road, now zoned R1, single family to be changed to R2, low-density residential. Millcreek Township Index 724-046. Julie Maggio, what can you say about it?
On Tuesday, April 2nd, the Millcreek Township Planning Commission recommended approval. Erie County Planning said that the petition was generally consistent with the Erie County Comprehensive Plan. The Millcreek Township Zoning Office does recommend approval. It is consistent with the Millcreek Township Comprehensive Plan. And the future land use plan designates the area for low to moderate density residential.
Okay. Questions, comments?
Ms. Maggio, was there any comments at the planning commission regarding this petition? Did the commission have any comments, or did any residents express concerns at the planning commission meeting for that particular?
Nothing that stood out.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, can we hear from the applicant in regard to this property? Mr. Sessler, please come forward.
Right here, sir.
We just want to,
If you could first please state your name.
oh, I'm sorry. Robert Sessler, I live at 3030 Loveland Avenue, Erie, PA, 16506 in Millcreek. Been a resident of Millcreek my whole life. Went to McDowell High School, graduated in 1970. So I've been here quite a while. We're in agreement with Embrace Millcreek, the plan. We feel that the demand for rental housing is continued. Based on your plan, we show that occupied housing units is only gone up about 6%, where rental property has gone up almost from 22%, almost up to 28%. So, you know, we just want to share that, you know, there's, in the audience as well, is that sometimes there's a stigma on rental property. And things have changed. I mean, the idea of slumlords, slum property is the past. People today that are renting, we're almost in partnership with the tenants now as owners. The tenants today want modern housing. They don't want to live in fact, some of the units, I've talked to some of the landlords, a lot of landlords are improving and doing a lot of remodeling on present rental units. And that's because the clientele, the people that want to rent, aren't people that don't have money. They have economic merit. So because they have economic merit, they'll take care of the rental units, and they'll continue to work with us as landlords to make sure that the properties stay in good condition. And so there's a lot of burden on us as owners to take care of multifamily properties. So we feel that we're moving in the right direction. We agree with Millcreek's plan, their 5- and 10-year plan, to go toward rental housing. The other point, too, is that the people that today, the older generation, no longer want to take care of their houses as much as they used to. Just ran into a case with a gentleman in a storage unit, talked about that. The younger people only have so much discretionary income. You know, with the expenses and cost of AI, artificial intelligence, becoming more expensive, you know, people don't want to travel less, cars are getting more expensive. So the whole idea of community involvement with retail and commercial corridors with the rental combined together is the future. I really believe that. So that's where we're at, and we feel we're complementing your plan. We are in agreement with it.
Is there anyone that would like to speak, from anybody in the audience, that is, that would like to speak in regard to this matter?
And specifically, this is the West.
Yeah, this would be the West Gore Road property only. Being none?
I
There's
just
no-
wanted to clarify, John.
Okay.
that, a resident did ask if these units would be single-family homes or group homes, and if they would be Section 8 housing. And at the Planning Commission, Mr. Sessler said that this development would be townhomes and would not be Section 8.
Okay. And just for clarification, from a zoning standpoint, this is just a rezoning matter.
Correct.
Not a land development application. That will come at another time, when Mr. Sessler feels the time is ready for that. Okay. And at that time, those matters will be addressed. Okay. There is nobody in the audience that would like to speak on this matter. Please let the record reflect there are no other comments from the public. And we'll call any questions, comments among the board. Being none, I'll call for a motion.
Mr. Grab, move to approve the rezoning requested on West Gore Road from R1 to R2.
Okay, do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, the next application before us is from, once again, Mr. Robert Sessler, and this is for properties, or portions of properties, let me correct that, portions of properties located at 4042 and 4058 West Ridge Road, now Zone C2 General Commercial, and asking for approximately 4.01 acres of the property to be reclassified, or to be classified as R4, high-density residential. Index numbers 406-012 and 013. Mr. Sessler, once again, or I'm sorry, let me go with Julie Maggio first. Sorry.
The Millcreek Township Planning Commission recommended approval. Erie County Planning said it was generally consistent with the Erie County Comprehensive Plan. The Millcreek Township Zoning Office recommends approval. It is consistent with the Millcreek Township Comprehensive Plan. The future land use plan designates the area for corridor mixed use.
Okay. Okay. And that's all from the, okay then. Mr. Sessler, now, if you would come forward.
We're asking for a modification to expand rental housing opportunities along major corridors. We feel that 26th Street and, of course, 12th Street and 8th Street is a major corridor. We're asking to reposition this commercial corridor, which focuses an opportunity to address both demand and placement of rental housing in a way that supports the multiple goals of Embrace Millcreek. Your plan recommends zoning reforms along major corridors to allow greater land use flexibility, which would enable rental housing to become a more important element of a mixed-use development. The benefits of this would be adding rental housing to more diversified potential income stream of redevelopment projects, in other words, to complement other commercial developments, and bring the proximity of commercial establishments closer to rental properties, or to rental areas which is in demand. It would create an active hub of commercial and residential activity and build in a customer base to support the retail services that are already existing in those areas. We feel that and also I know that the other parts of Millcreek near 8th Street and 12th Street will encourage pedestrian and bicycle facilities along major corridors. We're also seeing a short-term rental market. A lot of the younger crowd, I say millennials or even X-generation groups, don't want to rent very long. They want a short-term rental. So that's part of the future as well, because of a transit society we live in. I feel that opening this up would give a more flexible supply of accommodating future land development for the need for more housing. So we feel it's the zoning that's there now is antiquated, and it would encourage Millcreek. It would encourage more commercial development because they're going to see more modern housing. It would take away some of the blight that we see already along that corridor. You know, I just want to emphasize these are, as a development, these are major projects. These are expensive projects. We're not just slapping up some buildings. We're following your land development program. We're doing stormwater management. We're taking care of the drainage. We met with PennDOT yesterday, and PennDOT looked at that and said it was very ideal the way the land was laid. It looked like it could drain. It's going to drain to the north of the property. We encouraged them to clean out their cauldrons. I think there was some emphasis about ponding in some areas. I just want to emphasize that a lot of that has to do with landscaping. A lot of the residential owners do not pick up their leaves. They don't pick up sticks. And a lot of the trash that's thrown on the street collects in a lot of these cauldrons at The PennDOT, the grates that are on the catch basins, they get caught up, which causes a lot of ponding. So we're addressing with PennDOT to make sure that they try to clean out their catch basins and make sure it's not flooded. You know, so that's a big problem. That's what we see. So it has to be a joint effort. You know, it has to be the people that live in their homes, and as well as PennDOT and everyone else working together. So that's what we're trying to do. And so this development would be, we would work together and make sure it's done in a proper fashion and not have problems. So.
Just for clarification, Mr. Sessler, I want to make sure I understood you correctly. Did you state here that this would be more of a short-term rental? I'm not.
No, I'm just saying that we prefer getting a one-year lease. I mean, that's our own
Okay,
plan,
but-
a longer lease or longer. But I'm just saying that the trend, we're seeing the trend, a demand for shorter, but it doesn't necessarily mean we'll do that. I'm just mentioning that.
Okay, I don't want to be putting words in your mouth by any means.
No,
But my
no.
interpretation was
No,
that
we're not going to turn this into a bed and
no
breakfast. or-
permanence is what,
Right,
that's what
exactly.
I'm leading to, is that. And
Yeah,
is
or
that what you were?
Airbnb or something like that. No, we're not doing that, no.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, just wanted to be sure of that.
Well, and actually, with the recent Supreme Court ruling
Right, yeah, that's what,
designating that as
Yeah.
residential would actually exclude that use, whereas
That's
in
right.
commercials, it could be. So-
right, yeah, and that's just a new Supreme Court ruling that
Right.
came down in the last 3 weeks.
Right.
Okay, okay, I just need that for clarification there. Okay, any questions among the board here for Mr. Sessler? If none, okay. Is there anybody in the audience here that would like to speak on behalf of this matter? This is the one on West Ridge Road, 4042 and 4058. If you, was that? Yeah, anybody wanting to speak in regard to this matter, please come forward and identify yourself for the record.
Hi, my name is Kathy Ellis. I live right next to Mr. Sessler's property. And there is a huge problem with stormwater.
Okay.
Across the street, the Knack Park problem is also my problem. And I have pictures here of the last storm that we had, if you would like to see them. Who would like these?
We'll start here with Mr. Morgan, and we'll pass them down.
It's not, and it's not just a matter of, there's no place for the water to go. They've cleaned drains before. They've already cleaned them. They've cleaned that park, and there's nowhere for the water to go. So cleaning the drains isn't a matter of that. They fill up too quick, and we've got a problem. This is out my this is my driveway. There's that big tree there. On the other side of the tree is where that is supposed to go, the road.
It's the same tree?
Yep.
Okay. So
And
is this your property, or is this the neighboring property?
this is my property. This is where the road is gonna go, like right up there.
I mean, where the flooding is this a photo of your parcel or the adjacent parcel with the possible construction? Okay.
It's both. It floods really bad when it rains hard.
Okay.
So I will.
Here. Did you need to see them, Jim? Sure, I'll look at it. Yeah, just take a, nice, there you go there.
Yeah, and.
If you would, we'll get the photos back to you, ma'am.
Yeah. And across the street, also from where the road is supposed to go, is school bus. Several times a day, school bus, off and on, kids getting off and on the school bus. Since I've lived in that house, there's been 2 accidents. People go really fast. I've lived there for 20-some years. They go super fast along the road. There's been 2 rollover cars right there. It's not a good place for a road. Then the road would go probably next to my property in the backyard. I've got little children in my family that are gonna be back there next to my swimming pool that I have. I don't want the little kids getting run over. It's almost like my backyard. It's, that's, pretty much what I had to say. So, like, my total loss of privacy, there's gonna be a road in my backyard.
You're referring to like a possible driveway to reach the
Driveway.
development? Okay, okay.
Right, driveway. It's gonna be lit up. It is now dark back there. It's gonna be all lit up. There's gonna be massive amounts of people in the back, behind there. I don't know how close up there would be apartment houses. There's also a lot of deer back there. They cross, because my neighbor has like vegetables, raspberries and things like that. They cross all the time in the summer to go there. It's like a deer crossing.
Right.
It's wetlands back there. To me, it's a really bad place, to put an apartment or put and to put a road. It's just not good. So, that's pretty much what I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak in this matter?
My name is Tom Estock, owner of property at 2120, 2130 Colonial Avenue, directly north to this proposal. We constantly get flooding. There is a storm sewer at 2200, 2300 Colonial. That is the last storm sewer at the end of the road. It boils out consistently, runs down the Erie Canal, runs into our property, and floods it. We have been property owners there since 1987. Last year was the first time that we obtained flood insurance for the property due to the consistent flooding that we occur, and we do not get any help from the township whatsoever. We've brought the stormwater management up to Rick Morris. I know he has since retired. Many times regarding the storm sewer that constantly boils out at 2200, 2300 Colonial, and no help whatsoever. Mr. Sessler says that he contacted PennDOT. That is probably true, but I know the township cannot get any help from PennDOT on many occasions. Otherwise, this matter would have been addressed a long time ago. How he can get response and the township can't, I have no idea. But it is a constant battle fighting water. And in fact, I had a contract on that property roughly 8 or 9 years ago and turned it down. Why did I turn it down? Because I had a study done, and much of that property is a floodplain property. Something needs to be addressed in this township regarding the stormwater management. The problem begins at the railroad. That is prohibiting 90%, I would say, and I'm not an engineer, of the water to get to our lake.
You are, I don't mean to interrupt you, sir, but
Yeah.
when it comes to the railroads, you're absolutely right. That is it's basically a dam halfway through our municipality. And the biggest challenge we have, and I know it's going to sound like we're passing the buck, but the reality is in Pennsylvania, municipalities, even counties, even PennDOT, have almost no influence on forcing Class 1 railroads to upgrade their pipes. We're having a heck of a time.
Correct.
We talked earlier about our 28th Street issue with those neighborhoods being flooded. The biggest challenge we have is Class 1 railroads have undersized pipes under those tracks, and we have no authority and no hammer to actually force them to widen this. You're absolutely right. It's a hindrance to any effort, and again, contributes to this damming effect you have with properties that are near the railroad tracks. So I just want to let you know you're absolutely right, and we have been trying, and the state's been trying to get some kind of influence over those public utilities. Essentially, the PUC governs the railroads, and it's a heck of a time. So Just wanted, you're not wrong.
Sure, no, I totally agree. I've met with the railroad, a couple engineers there. They have been down there, walking around, trying to get conversations started, and like you said, you can't get to first base. I know what you're going through because I've had it happen firsthand as a business owner trying to communicate with them.
Right.
And this proposed development just adds to the problem, I feel. Even though there's stormwater management, consulting, engineering, all the above, it still adds to the problem. At the last hearing, Mike Prozan asked the general consensus of the public what they would rather see there, whether it would be commercial industrial property or high residential, and everybody said commercial industrial. I don't know if she can state that when you call upon her to see what comments were made, but that was a general consensus. I'm not necessarily opposed to development in the township, but as you well know, this area, general area of the township has seen numerous flooding, and it needs to be resolved before more building occurs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this matter?
Hello, my name's Carol Johnson. I live at 4126 West Ridge Road, Millcreek. We have lived in our house at 4126 West Ridge since 1990 for 29 years. We have a total of 2 acres of land and moved to Millcreek and bought the house and property as we love the quiet outdoors and surrounding and nature they afforded us. We are against changing the zoning for their requested properties from the C2 General Commercial to the R4 High Density Residential District. There are 7 private homes to the left of the 2 properties. There are only 2 small businesses, which are an upholstery shop and Mr. Sessler's financial business there, and they're only open in the daytime hours. And to the right of there's 2 properties. There are 4 more private homes. These apartment houses do not fit in with our area at all. We do not want the noise of multiple apartments, people coming, going all the time. It's going to destroy our peace and quiet. This is why we bought our secluded property to begin with. Plus all the extra lights will destroy all of the neighbors and also the beautiful natural nature that we now have and enjoy. Traffic is also an issue. It is so heavy now that it's so difficult to plow the driveways that I cannot even imagine what the traffic would be like if you allow this property to be rezoned to R4 High Density Residential. And also the flooding, as everybody else has mentioned. The flooding is just terrible. I have had flooding in my back and my front. My deck has been washed out. Where Mr. Sessler's property is supposed to come and the 2 townhomes are to be built will border right along the side of my property and where there is a tree line running. I sincerely ask that you do not approve this rezoning for all the reasons I have stated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Picardo, I think you're the next person to stand. Would you please come forward? Thank you. Please state your name.
Yeah, good morning. My name is August or Gus Picardo. I live at 4020 West Ridge Road. I'm also a graduate of McDowell High School in 1956. I also feel that our family served the Millcreek Township for over 40 years with fine produce and everything else. So I think that we have serviced Millcreek very well. We've been property owners since 1956. I own all the property east of Mr. Sessler's place. I own the 3 homes at 4020, 4034, and 4020, 4030, 4034. But I also own 6 acres of land behind Mr. Sessler. And he's correct when he said he's going to bring his water north.
Sir, can I ask one more question? The homes you own, you and your family live in them, or you rent them out?
I live in them, and I live in one and rent the other. Well, they're family homes, but I live in one, and the other family homes I
They're rental
rent.
units.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. I'm totally opposed to this because the 6 acres of land that I own north, I'm getting flooded out as well by the railroad. And now Mr. Sessler is going to bring his water north onto my property. You're hearing today from every property owner that surrounds this piece of property. If you look at who has spoken here today, it's every property owner. Okay? If you approve this project, okay, you're approving it with no concern for safety, as they have spoken, because it is a safety hazard. I see those kids when they get off the bus and everything else. Water's the tremendous problem. Tremendous. I mean, and you're taking away value from other property owners who's got property for commercial use. Because my property's commercial. We have to have a concern for commercial. If you look at everything that's north of this property, where housing is going to go, you've got all industry in that. You got industry, the laundry, Insul board, and there's 2 or 3 other industries that I own the land next to that. So, to me, this is a no-brainer when it comes to not approving it. You've got every homeowner here that's totally against it. You've got a water situation, which is a problem for Millcreek, but a bigger problem for us that live in the area. Okay? And there's also a safety issue. So you've got 3 big issues, and, you know, Mr. Sessler has moved into the area very few years ago, and now he wants to do all this project and everything else. And I hope there's concern for all of us that have been there for 50-plus years that live around. I ask that you not approve this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Picardo.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this matter? Okay. We're gonna have to be at the podium.
You have to go on
After this
the
young lady
record.
speaks. Okay, sorry about that.
My name is Veronica Rexford. I live at 4124 West Ridge Road. The back corner of my property would be adjacent to this parcel, should it be purchased. It's my understanding that Mr. Sessler does not own the piece of property currently. I made an observation while I was leaving my house today, and I looked at the driveway that currently exists on Mr. Sessler's property. And it has a really, what I would consider an excessive grade to the west, so that stormwater from that property is directed to the property that neighbors mine. That, and the fact that you've stated that the water management at the railroad level is unmanageable and something that the township cannot fix, tells me that regardless of the fact that you're talking about rezoning now and the property plan comes later, if you're unable to handle the water that is already there, I don't believe that anything that is done on that property can mitigate the problem. I am also not in favor of approval of the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rexford. Would you please come, I'm sorry to make you walk forward here. I know you're having trouble walking, so.
I'm fine. There's just one more thing that I wanted to add, that putting a driveway where he wants to put it And the one that there already does grate down. The flooding you see now, along with additional driveway, is gonna totally flood my house. It's gonna come up over and flood in my house, because it will. And that's pretty much all I had to say. I ask that this not be approved also. Thank you very much.
I have a question for Julie. Of course, this is only a rezoning matter, and I don't want to use that term lightly, only, but it is a rezoning matter. Is this property owned by Mr. Sessler, or is it under contract, as we just heard a claim made?
We have articles of agreement.
Okay, so it's not owned by Mr. Sessler at this time? Okay. Not that that has a whole lot with us here, I'm just asking for facts, is what I'm doing. Okay. Was there any sort of sketch plan submitted or anything at this time? Or was it just the rezoning matter at hand? In other words, when the presentation was made before the planning commission, was there a sketch plan or some concept to?
There was a small sketch or concept plan submitted, yes.
Any comments regarding that?
Yes. Just what the residents have just spoke about right now, yes.
Okay.
I guess on that, is there any additional testimony at the planning commission that would add to what we heard today, Ms. Maggio, or pretty consistent?
The residents that spoke today also spoke at the planning commission
Okay.
meeting, yes.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Picardo, if you would please come forward. I'm sorry, I can't let you speak from there.
I don't know if you have this in the notes.
Okay, please hold on a second. When you get to the podium.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't know
Thank
if you have this in the notes, but there were members of the zoning commission that didn't want this approved as well. It did pass 3-2, but there were members of the zoning commission, and they brought up the same reasoning for not wanting this rezone as we have today. Okay, just
Okay,
for the
thank you,
record.
Mr. Picardo.
Thank you.
Julie, just for fact, there was a split vote on that?
Yes, at first, a 2-3 vote rejected the motion made by Mr. Prozan, seconded by Mr. Police, to recommend denial of the request, which led to further discussion. And then it was moved by Mr. Kubea, seconded by Mr. Skelly, carried 3-2 to recommend approval of this petition to the supervisors.
Okay. Okay, so the planning commission recommended approval. County planning recommended approval also?
Correct.
I want to clarify, but the county doesn't recommend approval, the county just issues if it's consistent with their.
Consistent.
Well, I just don't, I don't want to put the county on the hook for this, that's all.
Okay, their planning department said it's consistent with the.
With their Erie County Comprehensive Plan, yes.
Mr. Sessa, please come forward if you would.
I didn't want to get an argument with those that are opposed to this. However, the mentioning about flooding is a complete exaggeration.
Okay, whoa,
And,
please, folks.
excuse me.
Please.
I've-
Mr.
because
Sessa has the floor.
Because we've
Please.
already, we've done the engineering on the property, and we can contain the water. The land is large enough to do that, even with the wetlands. In the mentioning of the flooding around the perimeter of the property, the one, she mentioned that the parking lot, well, the reason, the parking lot has draining around the parking lot. That was put in before we did that. So that has been taken care of. In fact, the ponding has actually been less, it's not been more since we've done that. As far as the driveway, we will grade the driveway so that the water will be caught in a catch basin and be taken to where it should go. It'll actually decrease the flooding. Mr. Picardo mentioned his land. That would not affect his property. His property's too far away. So there's a lot of exaggeration here. And also the idea of lights. If it was zoned, if it stayed commercial on a commercial establishment, there'd be more lights. That's nonsense. The lighting for residential could be done in such a way that it's not intrusive, and it can be done properly. As far as crowding, I mean, to say that a tenant is less of a occupant than an owner is somewhat discriminatory, especially because, again, that's that stigma. It's basically this rugged individualism. I know you've been there for years. However, it doesn't give you the right to be territorial on an area. So I understand your sentiment, but when you look at the future of where the housing is moving, you have to think about the future, not just your own present needs, you know. So I just think there was some exaggerations. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this matter? Okay. Thank you.
And folks, typically we do have a 5-minute time limit. I've been the timekeeper. I've been negligent in my duties, so
If Mr. Sessler thinks this is an over-exaggeration, I'd invite him down to see pictures of our property during flooding when we cannot use loading docks for 2 and 3 days, and they're pumping water over the railroad tracks with 6-inch trash pumps from Knickerbocker Equipment Company, now Admar. I'd invite him down there because it is not an over-exaggeration.
Okay. Going to make one more call. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this matter? Okay. I see some movement back there. Okay.
I neglected to address one thing. I'm Veronica Rexford, 4124 Westridge. The frontage, the available frontage on Westridge Road, that is property that Mr. Sessler currently owns, how many feet between the property line of the neighbor and the existing driveway remains? It would be my supposition that there's not adequate frontage available to create an adequate driveway back to a property with 40
Okay.
units.
Ms. Rexford. Okay. Ms. Rexford, I'm going to have to stop you on this. Is for a rezoning application, not a land
Understood.
development application. So I understand your point there. Should there be a land development? And I'm just saying I don't know. I'm not sure how this is going to work out today here, and you know, should it be successful, and then there is a land development application, that would be addressed at that time. And of course, that is going to require a PennDOT highway occupancy permit, because as you know, West Ridge Road, Route 20, is a PennDOT highway. So they need to get a permit from PennDOT in regard to access to that. So I just want to make that clear. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, and
No,
I just wanted to
I
clarification.
really only wanted to
Sure.
ask the question,
Right, I
how many
understand.
feet?
I understand there, yes.
right. And Ms. Rexford, just to add to Mr. Grove's point, it's a perfectly reasonable question to ask. We just can't compel the applicant to provide that kind of information today at this hearing. So
Understood.
if Mr. Sessler would like to respond, he's welcome to. But we can't compel him to at this hearing.
Okay. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this matter? Okay, any questions or comments from the board? Mr. Bach, anything?
No, sir.
Mr. Morgan?
I'll provide some commentary. Listen to the concerns residents have. They're not unreasonable concerns to have. The one thing I would stress to the board is, regardless of whether this parcel were to develop as multifamily or develop as industrial or develop as commercial, and Ms. Maggio, please correct me if I'm wrong about this. Our zoning, when it comes to developments that are adjacent to residential property, a multifamily development has the same setback, screening, stormwater requirements as a commercial development if it's adjacent to an R1 district. Is that correct? So I just want to let the folks in the audience know that, you know, we don't have the authority as a board, and no board in Pennsylvania has the authority to deny someone developing their property within whatever their legal zoning district is, whatever the legal building codes or storm regulations are. So we don't have the authority to tell someone they can't build something. So if Mr. Sessler came in and wanted to develop it as commercial or industrial, the same concerns about flooding and traffic would stand, and we wouldn't be able to deny it based on those grounds. We would make sure he follows the proper permitting procedures for our stormwater management, for building code, for those sorts of things. So I just want to clarify that a lot of the concerns that I've heard today would still be in place even if it was a commercial development or industrial development, and would be handled the same way as they would be if it was a multifamily development. So I just kind of want to put that out there to everyone who had concerns about access to Route 20, concerns about screening, lighting, stormwater, is that those same development standards would apply to a multifamily development as it would for a commercial or industrial development. I wanted to clarify that for the board as well. And that is correct, Ms. Maggio and Ms. Sokol? Okay.
Okay, I question or comment, but before I forget this one question, and this is either for Julie Maggio or Matt Puzz, who's in the back, who's our zoning administrator. Under the current comprehensive plan, that shows that it being consistent, the proposed rezoning is consistent with the comp plan. What about the prior comp plan? What did the future land use map, does anybody know? I know it's an unknown question. Mr. Puzz, would you please come forward and
Good morning. The prior comprehensive plan called for that as industrial, the industrial portion of it.
What was the date of that one?
2005?
2002, yeah.
Yes, it was almost 20 years old.
That's just something I needed for the record myself there, so. Okay. Any other questions or comments among the board? If there are none, I'll call for an action on this. It's on motion.
Mr. Chairman, I understand the residents' concerns, but I do believe those concerns can be addressed during the land development portion when these developments come in. I do stand by the comprehensive plan, the recommendations of it, that we do need to consider multifamily uses in the township, and that locating those multifamily uses along major highway routes is a more appropriate use than what the township has historically done, which is have multifamily developments off of low-volume township roads and right behind established, complete land, neighborhood subdivisions. So I do stand behind this rezoning, and I will make a motion to approve it.
Okay, do I hear a second on that?
I do sympathize with the residents. If I lived there, I'd probably be here as well, expressing the same concerns. I'm glad Mr. Morgan added the part about, I think we still would have the same concerns, whether this was industrial, commercial, or the R4 that's looking to go to. With that being said, I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Okay, and I vote no. Can't wait to see the editorial on that one. Okay, moving on to the next item. Item number 8, proposed ordinance 2019-6, an ordinance of the Township of Millcreek, Erie County, amending the lot, yard, and height zoning restrictions for the R2 zoning residential zoning districts. Ms. Maggio.
There was an error discovered in the zoning ordinance, and we accordingly adjusted the minimum lot area per unit and the minimum width in the R2 district.
Okay. And this is something that we've had a problem with the zoning ordinance, so
Yes.
we're making a correction, is that right?
Yes, we're making a correction.
Okay. Okay. Any questions or comments among the board?
I guess I'll just further state that one of the issues, Julie, was that essentially the same density requirements of a single-family district were erroneously applied to the R2 district, which should have been denser.
Similar, correct,
So this
yes.
is reestablishing
Yes.
the original R2 standards that were kind of erroneously eliminated during the codification we went through
You're
a
correct,
few years
yes.
ago. Okay.
Okay. It's a good idea, getting that updated, corrected, and see a flaw, fix it. Okay. Let's see here, since that was a proposed ordinance.
Yeah, I'd make a motion to adopt ordinance 2019-6.
We need public testimony on that, Mr. Shaw? I think
No, this was a recommendation from the,
okay.
uh,
Testimony required. Okay.
from the, it is a zoning ordinance change, so you're right, I think we should have any public testimony or any public comment on the specific ordinance.
Okay. We should?
Yes.
After the motion and second, is there a second?
Yeah, do I hear a second on that, and then we'll get some comments.
I'll second.
Any public comment regarding this matter here? This would be the proposed ordinance 2019, which is amending section R, or the R2 section of the zoning ordinance. Being none, okay. Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Block, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, item number 9, new and amended ordinance is under review, and let's see here, we've got a couple that we're reviewing. One is the sign ordinance, which is a part of the Millcreek Township zoning ordinance. The mall zoning ordinance amendment, that's coming up soon. The Millcreek Mall, we're trying to straighten out some zoning matters on that, making everything so that it all works copacetic. And also a debt ordinance, which we'll be talking about that in further detail as that time comes up. Those are ordinances that are being considered at this time or working on. So there's no comment or anything on that right now. Item number 10, Resolution 2019 R25, a resolution pursuant to Resolution 2015 R20, and a municipal records manual to approve proposed disposition of certain township records. And let's see here, we generally dash cam videos from the police department that have expired. This comes from Chris Filson, who's our IT director. And let's see which ones he has here. Give me a second, I'm pulling this up. Dash cam videos to be deleted between May 15th and May 28th due to the reaching the end of the required retention period. And I think that's it. That's all there is. Is there a motion on that?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2019 R-25.
Okay, do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Mr. Brock, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Item number 11, Resolution 2019 R26, a resolution approving Millcreek Township's fiscal year 2019 action plan requesting CDBG financial assistance from the U.S. Department of HUD. Let's see here. John, do you have something on this one?
I think that's Annie.
Or Ann, I'm sorry. Ann Sokol?
Well, we requested, CDBG funding. We requested that
Alphabet
funding.
soup, you know.
We requested the funding to be used for, the curb cut ramps. It has been approved, it is under review, it's being advertised right now. And I believe what they're doing is they're looking for a sign off on your request.
So this is formalizing the use of our CDBG funds for the year.
Correct. And let me see, I think I have an amount here, 244,561, $244,561.
And so the board's clarification and the audience, those funds are being dedicated exclusively to adhere to American Disability Act compliances throughout the township, to construct accessible curb ramps throughout the township. That's what those funds will be going towards exclusively this year.
Project we've been working on for what, 7 years now, I think? 6, 7
8
years. It's been a while.
Yeah.
Making improvements, so.
Also included in that funding will be administrative costs.
For the county.
for the
Right.
county.
Okay. Questions, comments from the board? If not, I'll call for a motion.
I'll move to approve Resolution 2019 R26.
Do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Block, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, item number 12 is the Erie County Gaming Revenue Authority multi-municipal grant presentation, and this is from Mr. Ben Spagan from the Jefferson Society. Mr. Spagan, would you come forward?
Ben Spagan, 415 West 29th Street, Erie, Pennsylvania, 16508, here on behalf of the Jefferson Educational Society, 3207 State Street, Erie, Pennsylvania. Thank you, Chairman, Supervisors, dignitaries of Millcreek Township. I am here today to ask for the continued support, as the Jefferson has for the 5th year, sought grant support funding for its Jefferson Alliance for Community Progress initiative through the Erie County Gaming Revenue Authority's multi-municipal collaboration grant. The Jefferson matches this grant at more than 2 to 1, and there is no financial obligation for municipalities signing a memorandum of understanding. Rather, this is an opportunity to invite these partners to the table to help ensure that our work benefits not just Erie County, but each of the more than 30 municipalities contained within it. Key initiatives under the Jefferson Alliance for Community Progress include the Jefferson Essays, most recently of which have been published on harmful algal blooms in the Lake Erie watershed, heritage tourism, including a 3-fort initiative on Erie's Bayfront, and a look at the racial disparities facing our community. It also includes the Jefferson Dinner Series, which serves to gather elected officials and key community stakeholders to gather around issues, critical issues facing the region, to be able to talk about them in open dialogue. Most recently, we invited Pulitzer Prize winning author and columnist for New York Times and Washington Post, Mr. David Shipler. And it also includes the hallmark initiative of this trio, the Jefferson Civic Leadership Academy, now in its 5th cohort, with more than 100 folks now serving as alumni of this. It's a 7-month-long process under which emerging Erie citizens, typically between the ages of 25 and 45, have the opportunity to explore the region in which they work, live, and play, to better understand the form and function of its municipal government, as well as Erie's connection to state government, and also work on addressing a critical issue facing our region. We also take people to a retreat in Harrisburg to be able to meet with top leadership from all 3 branches of government there. And we conclude with a graduation which features the presentation of that group action project. We visit many different municipalities. Here we know that a complication in Pennsylvania is, despite having 1/3 the population of California, we have 5 times the amount of government. That can be dense and harder to understand for folks looking to break into a civic contribution in their community. We help serve that function, and we look forward to Millcreek's continued support of that. In its 3rd year, I'm happy to answer any of the questions the supervisors may have about this.
It's a good program that you have there at the Jefferson Society. Sorry. We have a lot of people that go through that. And I think, once again, this year it'll be extended. A Millcreek resident can get tuition for this. So,
yes, sir.
Please, if you're a Millcreek resident interested in becoming part of this program, get a hold of Mr. Spagan over at the Jefferson Society, and he'll take your application, and it goes through an approval process. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Everybody's vetted out to see how they would work in the program. So, any questions or comments from the board?
Banner, you listed a number of initiatives. I'm curious, what's this cohort, is there a certain program you're working on this year for the cohort specifically, or is it several? I can't.
That's a great question. So this cohort, their group action project, is Erie's Great Lakes Blue Economy. One of the benefits that we have found is that we consult alumni and offer them the opportunity to come back and guide us on what they see critical issues being that face this region. That helped us focus on poverty last year, the year prior, the opioid crisis in Erie County, the year prior to that, blight. When we invited the alumni back, we found that the 2 competing themes that emerged from those conversations were economic development and environmental sustainability. We were able to do some research into some of the remarkable and innovative work that the state of Michigan is doing in terms of a blue economy on the Great Lakes watershed. We find that Erie County is uniquely positioned as the only county of the 67 of Pennsylvania that makes Pennsylvania a Great Lakes watershed. So we are excited to look at that in terms of the watershed and its impact throughout the county, and how Erie County can tie back to Harrisburg with lakefront development, economic development, and environmental sustainability.
Okay.
Let us know if we can offer any assistance in that programming for you.
Pardon, sir?
Let us know if we can assist you in any kind of program in that area. I know our staff in the Planning Development Department is very involved in coastal zone management issues, and we're very interested as far as the Embrace Millcreek plan of how to tap into those kinds of resources as well. So,
and we very much look forward to talking to the supervisors about that, to inform the participants of this program so that they better understand what's happening at a municipal level, and we look forward to those dialogues back and forth. We appreciate that very much.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments? Jim? John?
No.
Okay.
Very good.
Thank you. Okay. Call for a motion to approve that.
The separate agenda items, I guess, yeah. So 13 is the memorandum. Okay.
Okay. To the memorandum. Motion to, for this memorandum?
I'd make a motion to approve.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to state, we'll need to update the it lists last year's
Yeah.
chairman, so we'll need
Yeah,
to
I see
place your
that,
name
yeah.
on there.
I see that.
But I'd approve the MOU and authorize
Okay.
the chairman to
problem.
sign off on the MOU with
Okay.
the
Well, here-
Jefferson Society.
Thank you. Do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Thank you. Item number 14 is Health Department Tobacco Agreement Amendment. Let's see here. Jim, do you know?
Mark, you want to
Mark,
handle
do you
that?
want to handle it? I'm not
Sure.
sure who wanted to handle this one.
This is simply an amendment of an existing agreement between the Erie County Health Department and the Millcreek Police Department relating to efforts to ensure that the local retail establishments are selling cigarettes and so forth in compliance with the laws. So it adds an additional $630 to the underlying agreement for some additional compliance checks.
Okay. Questions, comments? If not, call for a motion on that.
I'll make a motion to approve the amendment to the agreement between the Erie County Department of Health and the Millcreek Police Department.
Okay, do I have a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes on that. Okay, item number 15 is for Scott Park. It's a corrective deed. Mr. Shaw?
I'll take this again. This arose as a result of a grant that the township is receiving from DCNR relating to Scott Park. As part of that grant process, there had to be certain changes made to the deed, and so this corrective deed reflects those changes. Specifically, it appears that when the original deed was conveyed, one leg of the legal description was missing, so we had to correct that. Then, in addition to that, some of the deed restrictions required as a result of the receipt of the grant funds needed to be added and included within the deed. So that's the purpose of this corrective deed.
Okay. Now, do we have to take action on this?
Yes,
Do we
that
have to
would.
approve?
Yes, I would recommend that you move to approve the corrective deed and authorize the chairman to execute it, and then I will proceed to get it recorded.
Okay, just wanted to be sure of what the action was here. Okay, do I hear any questions or comments regarding it? If not, I'll call for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the corrective deed for Scott Park.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Item number 16, Highmark agreements. And let's see, is that Mark Zahaski or Mark Zahaski?
The other Mark.
Hey, Mark.
Hey, Mark.
What we have here is it was offered by Highmark for essentially committing to 3 years with the Highmark for providing our health insurance. Because these are written in our collective bargaining agreements, it's kind of a no-brainer for us to commit to this. As an incentive, what they're doing is giving us 1 year free on the administrative cost of the administering the plan. So because we're kind of locked into the Highmark as our provider, and we're going to get some free services out of it. I recommend that we go ahead and approve the plan.
Okay. Questions, comments from the board? Not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the Highmark loyalty renewal agreement.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, let's see here.
If I could, I think there's also a separate approval that needs to be made for the flexible spending account plan agreement.
Yeah, that was with BAI itself as opposed to Highmark. Apparently, we failed to approve the amendment. They increased the amount that you could put in flex plans on a, well, generally an annual basis, but they're not required to. And part of what this is allowing us to do is to offer the higher limit of $2,700 on the flexible spending plan for this calendar year.
Okay.
So would that allow
And
employees?
that's also adopting them as the administrator for the plan.
Right.
Mark, just so I'm clear, so authorize this would allow our employees to amend their withholdings for this year, or this is going to affect for next year? 'Cause typically, there's a deadline for when folks can sign up.
Actually, I don't know if anybody's at the limit. I don't know if anybody exceeded the old limit.
Okay.
Okay.
The old limit was $2,600, the new limit is $2,700. I don't know if anybody specifically made that change.
Gotcha.
But also, we're adopting BAI as the administrator for the flex spending plan as part of this agreement, which we've been doing since the first of the year. They've been the administrator.
Okay.
So the motion is to adopt the amendment to the flexible spending plan.
We'll adopt the flexible spending plan, which includes the amended limit amount of $2,700. There was no change to the rates.
The title of the agreement is the adoption agreement of the flexible spending account plan. Technically, that's what you need to approve.
Okay. With all of that said, I hear a motion on that.
I'll make a motion to
Okay.
approve the agreement.
How about a second on that? Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay. Item number 17, NLA 2 Real Estate Access Agreement. Annie? And-
Yes, this is a site access agreement, works hand in hand with the storm overflow basin that we discussed earlier to alleviate the flooding, help alleviate the flooding on 28th Street. What this allows us to do is enter upon the property where the basin will be located and perform all the necessary testing that needs to be done in order to determine the feasibility of the pond.
Okay.
We submitted the draft access agreement to the owner last week, and I think we received, late in the day yesterday, their comments, a couple of minor comments, which we were fine with, so I would recommend approval of that agreement.
Okay. Well, that said, do I hear a motion on that?
I'll make a motion to approve the access agreement.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Okay, and I also vote yes on that there. Okay. Item number 18 is a grant for census coordinator. Am I missing something here on my agenda? Nothing? Okay. Okay, we'll just have to go by what is known about it. The City of Erie, the County of Erie, and the Council of Governments has approached all the municipalities in Pennsylvania to help by providing matching funds through EGCRA to employ a census coordinator for the census coming up next year in 2020. The request to Millcreek Township, because of our population, is $5,000, which can be paid up front or paid off in two separate payments, one for this year and one for next year. And I'm sorry, we don't have the documentation on it. It's on the agenda, but it's not there. Anyway, this is to help for all of the municipalities to work with EGCRA to get the matching grant. And with that said, I think it's a pretty good idea. And I just don't know if there's any discussion here among it. I will call for a motion if there is no discussion. And I'll call for a motion one more time. If not, I will make a motion to approve the grant application request. And that is for $5,000 township money to be paid to help the county, the city, and the COG employ a census coordinator for next year's census. Okay, I've made a motion. I do not hear a second, so therefore that motion fails. Do I hear another motion? Sorry, excuse me. Excuse me. Would you please come forward? Okay, we can entertain. Please come forward if you will.
It's irregular.
Well, is it irregular? Would you like to hear from Councilwoman Fatika? Guys, do you want to hear from her or not? Or we can.
If I'm out of order, let me.
Well, I mean, there's a question about it being out of order, so I guess let's get this clear. Mark, is she permitted to speak from a legal standpoint?
Technically, this is an item that was on the agenda. So
Okay.
the time period for public comment would have been early in this meeting under agenda item 3.
Okay. So is she,
From a technical perspective.
okay.
Obviously,
I don't have a problem extending courtesy to the councilwoman if she wants
Okay.
to
Okay.
address the issue. I don't have a problem extending courtesy to you, Kathy.
Okay,
Feel
just want to
free
make sure we're following legal procedure here, so.
Absolutely. I wasn't prepared for this, but since it came up, I just wanted you to have a little bit more information, and I apologize that maybe you don't have it at this point.
And so do I for, yeah.
But what we're asking is to make sure the census is adequately accounted for. Municipalities have been assessed or asked for to participate with the matching grant. In the event that one person is not counted in your municipality stands to lose in state and federal funds $2,300. So I just wanted you to have that information prior to making your decision. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Fatika. Okay, there was a motion to approve, and that has failed. Is there another motion before the board here, or is there no motion at all? Which I believe no motion means not participating. Would I be correct at assuming that? I don't want to assume anything here, so. Okay, then there's no other discussion on that matter. Okay, item number 19, road use agreement for Arden Road. Mr. Shaw, do you have something on that? Or does that go over to engineering still? Okay, I know you'd sent a document out, so.
The developer, Grouse Hollow, has submitted an agreement to use Arden Road to have excess fill material hauled from site.
Yeah.
We do this on a regular basis when we're running any heavy loads over Township Street, where we video the road as is prior to the use and then after the use, and they pay for any damages that may have been caused by running the vehicles on there. I believe it said roughly 80 triaxles of material is to be hauled off site. Once it gets out to the end of Arden, they go onto a state road on Route 8. There is one little section, they made one change to our regular agreement. There's one section on the end of the cul-de-sac or hammerhead that we have built up there that was actually on their property that they allowed us to use to turn around our plow trucks. So we're not gonna make them fix what's theirs if they damage it.
Okay. Okay.
I have a question.
Yep.
What are the triaxles for? What are they doing?
They're hauling fill material away from, or waste material away from the site.
Yeah.
That Grouse Hollow is a subdivision.
Oh, the new one by the old cider mill?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Where the old cider mill was on board.
So they're coming in the,
They're coming in off the back.
yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, then.
Any comments from Mr. Shaw on this agreement?
No, I reviewed the agreement, and
Okay.
it was fine. The exception that Ann was talking about is, if you recall, a couple years ago, an issue came up with respect to the development of Grouse Hollow, and there was a turnaround that had been created at the end of Arden for the plow trucks that extended onto the Grouse Hollow property. And so they were just accounting for the fact that, to the extent the portion of the turnaround that's actually on the Grouse Hollow property, there's any damage to that, they won't need to redo it. In part, I think there was an agreement that once that's all done, there'd be a different configuration taken at that area.
Okay.
Okay, then. That said, do I hear a motion on that?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the road use agreement for Arden Road.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Item number 20, a financial security release request for a road repair at 2714 Loveland from Reeves Plumbing. Annie, do you have something on
Yeah,
that?
that's mine. Reeves Plumbing, they want release of their financial security. In our road use ordinance, we require a bond in the amount that is determined to fix that road cut, and we retain that amount for 2 years, after which they can request release. The 2 years is up, the road has been inspected. We recommend that the financial security in the amount of $1,066 be released back to Regional Plumbing.
Okay. Questions or comments from the board? If none, I'll call for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the financial security release request, Reeves Plumbing.
Do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes, thank you. Item number 21, stormwater maintenance agreement for the Villa Maria Academy tennis courts. Erie Cathedral Prep is the developer. Ann?
We received the required documentation from GPI for reasonable conformity to our stormwater plan. Therefore, we recommend that the township approve the stormwater maintenance agreement.
Okay. Okay. Questions or comments from the board? If not, call for motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just clarify that when we approve the agreements, we also approve the plans themselves. So I would make a motion to approve the stormwater management agreement and the stormwater
And
management
the plan.
plan.
Right. Okay. There a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, next item on the agenda, 22, is a sidewalk deferral agreement request for 5912 Pilgrim Road. Ronald J. and Susan Hayner are the developers and owners of the property. This is your standard, oh, Annie, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yes, they are proposing to, they are constructing a single-family dwelling at that address. There are no sidewalks located anywhere in the vicinity, so they've requested to enter into a sidewalk deferral agreement, which would make them install the sidewalk, should the sidewalk be installed.
Right, okay.
We recommend approval of this.
Okay. Once again, it's not an exemption, it is just saying, hey, when that time comes, they will build, they agree to do that, and that goes with the deed for the property, okay?
And it's also included
Right.
in the stormwater for the
Okay.
family.
Questions or comments from the board? If none, I'll call for a motion.
I just want to clarify, Mr.
Yeah.
Shaw, do we need to actually vote that it be attached to the deed, or is that just part of the process that the deferrals are part of, are actually recorded with the county?
We've established the policy a couple years ago to actually record the deferral agreements.
Okay, so that doesn't even need to be part of the motion then, just the approval, okay.
Just clarification. Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the referral agreement request.
Do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Bach. Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes on it. Okay, item number 23 is April Building Construction Report. Julie Maggio, do you have that report?
In April of 2019, for total residential structures, there were $3,163,073 worth of construction. $2 million of that were were residential structures, which included 2 single-family dwellings and 2 apartment buildings.
Okay. Of course, copies of that will be available online.
Correct.
Now we're in the township zoning office. Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to 24, communications. Treasurer, Mark, do you have anything?
I have nothing further.
Okay. John, do you have something?
Apparently, yeah.
Okay.
Gentlemen, a couple of new hires been submitted for us to approve from the Human Resource Office. The first is a new hire for our dispatch office. This would be to hire Matthew Flack as a dispatcher at a rate of $18.83 per hour per our contract with a hire date of May 22nd, 2019.
Okay.
But then a motion to approve the hire.
Do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote? Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
Oh, I vote
Sorry.
yes.
Okay, and I also vote yes. Okay, anything else you got there, John? Or do you want me to handle the next one?
Yeah, if you'd like to, John, I'm not very familiar with it.
Okay, this comes, let me back up here a little bit. Okay, this comes from Ashley Marsteller, who is the Parks and Recreation Director. The subject is summer season employee rate change request. She is recommending to approve the rate change for seasonal summer maintenance employees to $8 per hour for the first season, $9 per hour for the second season, and $10 for the third. So these are for employees that come back every year on a seasonal basis. These would be our summer help part-time. And she'd put that in a request, and I will put that in the form of a motion to approve those pay increases.
Mr. Chair, my understanding, so this isn't for current employees to follow the current rate schedule, it's to actually, it's to change the rate schedule?
To changing the rate schedule is what that would be.
I think it's highly inappropriate for this to be coming to the board right now without prior discussion. I also think it's highly inappropriate for it to show up now when it should have come up during budget time last year, so.
It was in her budget, I do know that, so.
It was not disclosed to the board during her budget discussions.
Okay, I believe it was, but we'll leave it at that there. So
If it
I made a
was, we wouldn't need to
motion.
vote on it now, Mr. Grow.
Okay. I made a motion. Do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote no.
And I vote yes. Moving on to the next one, we have summer season hiring request. This comes from the Parks and Recreation Department. And give me just a second here. We did. Okay, now this is in regards to the Golf and Learning Center. She would like to have these following, well, actually, not all of them are from the club. Parks Maintenance, we have employees, Josh Puda, Garrett Clark, Sean Marsden, Steve Tome, Ryan Hauser, and Luigi Yates at various rates there as listed. And so I'd like to hire those three, or that group there. That is, I think there's 6. And then for the golf course clubhouse, these would be the following: Ryan Bickle, Sawyer Farbotnik, Sydney Farbotnik, Leah Masick, Angelina Bucci, Norm Tufts, Marin Sobin, Emily Piotrowski, Jeffrey Bolin, and Barry Reichel. And then also to work for the golf course maintenance. And these are all part-time summer help. Richard Johannesmeyer, and they're all at the rates that are listed there. So I'd like to put all those employees hired as one motion there, so I'll make that approval as one. Do I hear a second on that?
I'd like to point out, gentlemen, these rates that you're approving aren't even consistent with the rates you just approved previously.
Okay. Okay, they will be adjusted accordingly.
No, I think they're consistent, John. I think if you look at the top, those rate changes, my understanding is they're for parks maintenance.
Right.
So the first group, it
under
looks
the
to me
blue
like
heading.
it's under the new scale.
Yeah.
But the rest of the staff, which will still be Township Parks and Recreation staff, are going to be stuck with the old rate structure.
And let's go back.
Right, they're not part of the maintenance group.
Right, yeah, this would be for the
That's my
maintenance group,
understanding.
yes. Go back to the motion that was, or the action that actually asked for it. Is my recommendation to approve the rate change for the following seasonal summer maintenance employees.
Right,
Not
so
the
that
golf-
does
not the
not
golf course.
include the golf course,
Does not
correct?
include- Yeah, that is not.
Okay.
Okay. Anyway, I made a motion. Did I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I'm going to vote no.
Okay, and I vote yes. Okay, and let's see here. We have one from Public Works, Traffic Engineering.
Yes, gentlemen, this was tabled at a previous meeting, and I apologize for requesting that tabling. The issue at hand is the hiring of Jacob Chimera to be seasonal help at the old rate of $8.45 per hour. I asked to table that. Mr. Chimera is a relative of mine in a distant fashion through marriage. I asked for the opportunity to research with our HR department to make sure we won't be violating nepotism policy with this hire. Full disclosure, Mr. Chimera is the son of a technically first cousin of mine through marriage, so not technically covered under the nepotism policy, but just the same, I'll be recusing myself from the vote. I wanted to disclose that to you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve that hiring. Do I hear a second on that?
I will second that hire.
Okay, Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I will vote yes also, and please note that Mr. Morgan has recused himself from acting on that. Okay, we have, I think, one more, and that is a hire from the, or for the Building Maintenance Department. And this comes from Diane Lyons, our HR Director. Oops, sorry, give me a second here. These tablets are so much of a pain. Okay, and her recommendation is to hire Ian Steff for building maintenance summer help at a rate of $7.65 an hour. The date of hire is May 13th through August 30th, which is our typical summer help season there. So I'll put that in the form of a motion. Do I hear a second on that?
This is Public Works summer maintenance?
Yes, it'd be a building, yeah, building
maintenance.
maintenance, yep.
So only Parks maintenance is getting a raise, but Public
Well,
Works
that's what it
maintenance is
appears.
staying the same?
That's what it appears, yep.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'll make a motion to approve the hire at the old rate, which the board approved as part of our budget last year.
Okay. Do I hear a second on that?
I will second.
Okay. Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Okay, and I also vote yes. Okay, we had executive sessions on April 25th, May 2nd, and May 9th to discuss legal matters and I believe some litigation going on. Those don't have to be recorded or anything. Iketo, do you want to talk about that? Iketo Scholarship Dinner?
Yes, the Iketo Scholarship Dinner is coming up on Thursday, May 23rd at the Girard American Legion Post out in Girard. And we're looking to send some of our representatives here from the township to attend that dinner. We have chosen the 3 scholarship winners out of, I believe we had close to 30 applications. And the dinner is on May 23rd, so I'm going to put in form of a motion request to approve. I'm going to be attending, so I'd like to request to attend that dinner. And I believe Mr. Shaw is also possibly attending?
Okay.
I'd be honored. Thank you. So there'd be a request for the 2 of us to attend the dinner.
Okay, do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote
Do
yes.
I get a vote in this?
No, you're going to
No.
go. We're making you go.
Yeah, but you can't bill us for it.
Yeah, no billing us.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, let's see here. We got that. Any NPD requests there, Jim? Anything else you have?
We do have an MPD request. In keeping with the theme of a wage increase, we have a request from Chief Height. This is approval to increase the wage scale for permanent part-time dispatchers, as shown below. The last wage adjustment was January of 2010, so it's been over 9 years. This is for the part-time rate. He's submitting a request for the training rate to be at $12, 0 to 1 year experience $13, 1 to 5 years $15 an hour, and 6+ years would be the $15 an hour. It looks like cost of living increase based on CPI used for pension COLAs to be effective January 1st of each year. He's also requesting following dispatchers wage increase to $16 per hour upon approval. Matthew Parker, 12 years of service. John Sorge, 10 years of service. Andrew Kilmer, 10 years. And Sean Bear, 9 years of service. I'll put that in the form of a motion.
Okay, do I hear a second on that? Do I hear a second on that?
Not that it apparently matters today, but this also should have been discussed during the budget for 2019 last year and not brought up at a public meeting without any previous discussion. So I'm not exactly sure how we're paying for the raises or what they've been accounted for. And again, I find it highly irregular these requests would come not even mid-year. Just want to point that out, gentlemen, that perhaps not the most transparent and fiscally responsible actions we're taking today.
Do I hear a second? If not, I'll make the second on that. Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote no.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, do we have anything else there?
I think that's all from Chief Height.
Okay, Student Ambassador Report. Season's closing up.
Hello. So this week is AP testing week at McDowell, which is just a lot of exams happening for everybody. In addition to that, seniors' last day is May 29th, which is coming up within the next 2 weeks. Prom is June 1st, and then graduation is June 6th, right after that, and that's all that's happening at McDowell, along with spring sports coming to a close as well.
Okay, Anna, I'm going to assume this will be your last meeting that you'll be attending,
I'm
or you or Shane?
uncertain.
Because there's a meeting on the
Shane-
28th. so-
Shane's very busy, so I'm not sure.
Okay, but if not, I mean, if this is your last meeting, I just wanted to speak on behalf of the Board of Supervisors. It's been enjoyable having you as part of the board, you and Shane, and wish you the best in your graduation and whatever your future endeavors are.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being part of this.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Shaw, do you have anything?
Nothing further.
Okay. Cheryl Williams, what do you have?
I have the April Right to Know report. We received 2 requests. Both were granted, total of 2 hours preparation time.
Okay. Okay. Julie, anything? Ann Sokol, anything? Gary Snyder, anything else? No, sir. Okay. Citizens to be heard. Any citizens to speak on any matter regarding the township? Please come forward, and you'll have to identify yourself for the record.
Good morning. My name is Shauna Aiken. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Voices for Independence at 1432 Wilkins Road in Erie. I live at 4509 Homeland Boulevard, Erie, PA. I'm here today because it came to my attention in early April that the Township Supervisors voted to decrease their contribution to EMTA. It concerned me because I'm not certain if you understand the impact that that will have on our community. Not only will it affect bus service, it will affect lift service as well, because according to the Americans with Disabilities Act, lift service is a comparable service that is only required to happen when a bus service is present. So in doing the reduction to the payment for local match, what has happened and what we're being told is that the bus routes will be reduced from 16 down to 6. That will mean that people with disabilities throughout this community cannot get where they need to go. I have since learned that Millcreek Mall will be drastically affected by this decision, and in doing so, companies such as Boscov's, they have told us that they've made extreme effort to put bus stops at their store because they have over 18 employees who use bus service to get to work. This is an issue that I would really request that the supervisors reconsider. The exponential benefit to Millcreek because of bus and lift service is immeasurable. You have employers in this community that can't get their employees to work. I am an employer of over 600 people, and some of them use the bus to get in and through Millcreek, to get to my office, to get to homes of people they serve, and half of my staff use the bus and the lift on a daily basis to get to work. In making this decision, and I really believe that the decision was made because of a lack of understanding. When I sat down with you, Mr. Bach, on April 29th and discussed this issue, it was clear to me that there was some misunderstanding of the impact. It was clear to me that there was some misunderstanding of the effect. So I'm really hoping that we can get you to take a second look at this. I requested of you, Mr. Bach, that we hold a special hearing to discuss this issue so that the residents of Millcreek, who, by the way, don't understand how this is going to affect them, because when we spoke to the Millcreek Mall, they were clear that they didn't even know that their employees were going to lose bus service. So I think that there's been some miscommunication, and I would really like to take part in providing the necessary education to you all so that you can make a better decision, a more informed decision, and you will understand how it will affect your citizens here in Mill Creek. It's important to Voices for Independence because of access. You know, one of the reasons that we relocated our building to Mill Creek was, and one of the very first considerations was, would there be bus and lift service to our building? That was a principle a factor in our decision. So please reconsider your decision. It's an $18,000 reduction, but in contributing that $18,000, the benefit to you is you have over 1 million people who ride the bus through Mill Creek and either get on or off somewhere in Mill Creek, whether they're going to work, whether they're socializing, whether they're doing their grocery shopping, etc. And I know that 126,000 Lyft rides were provided in and through Mill Creek. It's critically important that we understand what a negative impact it will have. And if there's anything I can do to help educate, I will do that.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Eakin. Thank you.
Perfect timing, too. Mr. Bach, I know you reported out to the board your conversation with Ms. Eakin regarding really what I thought was a staggering claim that routes would be reduced from 16 to 6. I actually did call Mr. Gerhardt, who, and I apologize because I can't recall your current position. I know you've been a longtime lift coordinator, about that. And Mr. Gerhardt reported back to me he's unaware of how that claim was developed.
Right, and we just heard that same claim.
So I'd appreciate, I think, Mr. Gerhardt or Mr. Peterson, if you would mind coming up, we'd like to ask you to clarify again. At our last meeting, we asked you specifically if that was a true statement, and you said that no, you don't anticipate drastic impacts to service in Mill Creek Township based on a reduction of $18,000. So I just want to clarify, because it's very concerning to me if misinformation is being provided to residents and agencies that is that staggeringly incorrect.
My name is Jeremy Peterson. I'm not only the CEO of EMTA, but I'm also a Mill Creek resident, as you all know. I do want to thank everybody on the board and the supervisors for what they do on a daily basis, first and foremost. To answer your question, if our local match and that contribution is reduced to a certain degree, at some point in time, it's common sense that we would have to reevaluate our routes. This fiscal year, no, obviously. But going forward, we would have to examine that because this is different, this is new. We did want to let Mill Creek know, however, if we were to keep the same contribution as this year as we did last year and years past, without any increases at $20,000, that we would be given the new face and the transparency of the organization and the new administration here at EMTA and the new executive board. We would open up discussions to look at more equitable ways of contributions for all the municipalities.
Mr. Peterson, my direct question was, is it your intention to reduce routes in Mill Creek Township from 16 to 6?
My intention is to keep the service in Mill Creek and to keep it
and that the
flourishing.
reduction from the 18,000 is about 0.01% of your budget, even including match, it's less than 1% of your budget. So you're saying that less than 1% reduction in your funding would result in the elimination of 10 routes in Mill Creek Township?
Once again, we would have to look at that and examine the routes to see exactly what that effect would have on our.
Mr. Peterson, it's this level of really disingenuous commentary from your board that keeps me from being an advocate of increased funding for your organization.
Okay.
I have a question too. Shauna mentioned the Mill Creek Mall. Are you saying that our reduction in, our contribution would lead to a reduction in the routes to the Mill Creek Mall or from the Mill Creek Mall?
Once again, we would have to look at all of our routes and all of our Mill Creek service.
So your answer is
totality.
no.
Not necessarily.
You'd have to look at regional service. I mean, clearly the most efficient route you have are your rural routes, not your metro area routes.
Yeah, well, Route 3 is our busiest route into Mill Creek. It services Mill Creek and Summit.
Or again, in the metro area. It's not a rural route, that's a metro route.
Not necessarily. You do the complimentary paratransit, it goes 3/4 of a mile from any.
In some in Millcreek Township, which are in the urbanized area of the county, not the non-urbanized area.
I guess I'm.
Mr. Peters, as long as you're here, I want to
confused.
ask you again, and we asked you a month and a half ago, if you've actually reached out to the other municipalities that don't contribute any funding to EMTA, because by our calculations, if the 15 municipalities that you service each paid you $200 a month, which is less than a car payment, you could cover that local match, and yet here you are asking us to cover the full amount. So I'm curious, have you reached out to the other 15 municipalities in Erie County that have direct service and requested funding of them? And if so, how much of a commitment have you received?
Well, once again, first of all, we're new to this position. This is a new
Chairman,
administration.
you've been an EMTA employee for a long time.
As a director of
So is
operations in a
Mr.
certain
Gerhart.
capacity, Mr. Morgan, in a certain capacity, with a different board. All we're asking is, we're not asking for more. We did ask for a 5% increase as PennDOT. That's not us, that's PennDOT. And all we're trying to do is try to increase as PennDOT's directive, 5%. Millcreek doesn't want to do that. They haven't done it for a few years. That's okay. We can deal with that and move forward. What I'd like to
And
do
I
is
would say
open
that
up.
other municipalities have not as well, and yet here you are.
Once again, I would like to open up the dialogue, and I have invited everybody here going forward to become more transparent, and actually, you were afforded as a municipality and supervisors you're owed that from EMTA.
Right.
With the population of Millcreek being higher than any other township or municipality set aside from the city of Erie, we believe that Millcreek does have funds to help public transportation.
And Mr. Peterson, I guess the other concern I have is at that last meeting, we said we'd be happy to talk with you, and yet we have not received a phone call, and here you are at a public meeting. But we haven't heard from you since the last time we spoke
Well,
about, what, 4 to 6 weeks ago.
I would like to correct you on that. I have reached out to Millcreek on 3 separate occasions since that last meeting to no avail.
Not to me.
No. I contacted Mr. Bach. I've left messages for the front desk
Well, I
secretary.
apologize for that
So
commentary.
I don't,
I asked for your forgiveness for that comment, then I apologize.
you're forgiven.
I have no further questions.
I also want to include, just real quick, in the Embrace Millcreek Comprehensive Plan, in Section 4 of that, also states, in regards to transportation and circulation, that comprehensive plan, which is Millcreek's plan, states, "The Erie Metropolitan Transit Authority, EMTA, the region's public transportation provider, plays a vital role in connecting jobs and services within the residents of Millcreek and the city of Erie and the other neighboring communities. Major corridors in the township, including West 12th, West 26th Street, Peach Street, Wattsburg Road, are served by EMTA service and as are most of the township's major employment carriers." We believe that's important, and we want to continue that on. We have free service that we provide as EMTA to the Presque Isle State Park, and this is all just fixed route. Okay, obviously, we don't want to get into return of investment and this and that. We just want to continue, we want to have a good relationship with Millcreek. We want to continue that stronger relationship with Millcreek going forward. And it's going to behoove us to open up the lines of communication. Now, I'm sorry for, and I apologize for past administrations. I've said that before. But this administration was one of a kind, and it's something that EMTA and this public service has needed for a very long time. And give us the opportunity to show you that. That's all we're asking. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other citizens to be heard?
Good afternoon again. I'm Kathy Fatika. I live on Southern Drive in Millcreek Township. I'm County Council representative from West Millcreek. Now, County Council fought to expand EMTA routes throughout Erie County. and I was thrilled. The expansion included services to Waldemere and Presque Isle, and that went through the Millcreek Gateway to Presque Isle along West 8th Street corridor, which showcases the Embrace Millcreek project. Today I'm here because I am concerned about funding EMTA services. Just to backtrack a little bit, I first met Jim Bach when I was running for county council and he was running as supervisor. And at that time, and since his election, while working on numerous projects, I found him to be a thoughtful, cooperative, and understanding team player. That is why I was eager to attend a meeting with Jim Bach, Voices for Independence, and Lyft riders to discuss the impact of the Millcreek funding. So you can imagine my shock when Jim Bach suggested that manufacturers, merchants, and business people in Millcreek Township should subsidize the EMTA ridership services. I asked what else they may be charged for. Maybe fixing potholes in front of their businesses or snow plowing. The proposed funding cuts will certainly impact the lives of Millcreek residents, businesses, as well as all of Erie County. Now, is this embrace Millcreek or embarrass Millcreek? Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Ms. Fatika. Sir, if you would, please identify yourself for the record at the podium.
Good morning. I'm Andre Hort, representing the 2nd Legislative District of County Council. But the reason I'm here today is because I'm the liaison to EMTA. I was also the chair of County Council when we had the nasty, bitter dispute over whether we should renew a 50-year charter, whether we should, whether the county would sponsor the whole thing. We fought over board seats. The whole board blew up. At one point, we paid 60% of it, I believe. And we didn't have that amount of board representation. So at the last minute, we agreed on a 10-year charter. I'm not surprised that you taking the action or the position that you have. In fact, anyone could see it coming a mile away. It doesn't make me any less disappointed. We want to look at the transportation system as a regional system. The city still, until recently, seen it as just a city asset. We're grateful and appreciative of Millcreek. We know they paid one of the higher buy-ins. Certainly no one pays higher than we do. I'm asking you to reconsider the negativity and the pushback that you probably receiving from this in an attempt to do good by the taxpayer, to save the taxpayer dollar. It didn't work that $18,000. And you very well may lose some routes. Jeremy won't say it. You take the public, but you very well could lose some routes. And starting with the Presque Isle thing, because that was the most recently. It was hard to fathom all the people visiting Presque Isle and no bus service. It's one of the big things I complained about. So the charter thing was bitter. This doesn't have to be. I'm sure we can find some common ground. The one thing that I am sure of is that the county won't be the piggy bank for it. You guys ought to figure it out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Horton. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? If you would, there's a location right here, miss. And there's a microphone handy too. Julie, could you move the microphone closer to her? Would you identify yourself for the record, please?
Hi, yes, thank you very much. My name is Kelly Barrett.
Yes?
And I am an employee of Voices for Independence.
Okay.
And I also do business in Millcreek Township. I am asking that you reconsider your decision for funding for EMTA transportation. I am also a user of the lift for both recreational and work purposes.
Yeah.
I think, again, as Shauna Aiken stated, there is some misunderstanding on both the way that the ADA works as far as providing paratransit to people with disabilities. And I think that there has been some miscommunication about how distributing funding will impact users of the buses and the lift as a whole, whether you have a disability or not. I heard some mention that maybe other municipalities and townships should be asked to provide funding where Millcreek has been asked to provide funding. What I want to let you know is that if routes in Millcreek are cut, whether another township or municipality provides funding, if routes in Millcreek are cut, then paratransit routes comparable to those routes will be cut. And it was stated earlier that they cannot guarantee where those routes will be cut from, so we don't know where paratransit will be cut from. So the only way to ensure that paratransit and bus routes in Millcreek are going to remain is if Millcreek themselves takes the fiscal responsibility of ensuring that funding. No one else should have to be fiscally responsible to pick up the bill for something that you can ensure a service for your citizens for. And I want you to remember something else. The lift is something that people use to get to medical appointments, and the lift is something that people use on an intermittent basis. So sometimes you have a disability for a long period of time, and sometimes you have a disability for a short period of time. And a disability is something that can impact every single person in this room at any given point in your life. So do not make a decision and be fiscally irresponsible that may deny you, yourselves, the access and right to a service that you may need in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Ms. Allen, take the podium, please. Identify yourself too, please.
My name is Liz Allen, 407 Lincoln Avenue, 16505. I'm here today to address my concerns that Millcreek Township might drastically cut the township's contributions to EMTA. I would like to urge you to do the same thing I advised my colleagues on Erie City Council when they debated whether to approve Mayor Joe Schember's nominees to the EMTA board. Ride the bus. If you ride the bus as I do, you will learn about the passengers who travel to and from Millcreek, the people who use bus transportation because they work in Millcreek, or pick their children up from daycare in Millcreek, or shop in Millcreek, or go out to eat in Millcreek, or go to the movies in Millcreek. These are people who are contributing to your economy by spending money in your township as consumers or paying taxes as employees. There's another reason to support EMTA. It is the green way to travel. If you read the Erie Times News special report on May 5th about climate change, you know that the effects of climate change are becoming apparent in our region, including at Presque Isle. The city of Erie is working to attract more young people to live downtown, which will be a good boost to the city's tax base. But some of those newcomers will also eventually decide to buy homes in Millcreek. That generation, as does my generation, cares about the environment. They will want to use mass transit to commute to work, or to recreate at Presque Isle, or to shop at the Millcreek Mall, or the West Erie Plaza, or to eat at your many enticing restaurants along Westlake Road, or to shop at Giant Eagle, or Wegmans, or Walmart. Now, I wish that I had taken the bus today. I had a meeting at, we met at the Zodiac at 8 o'clock this morning for coffee. If I had taken Route 29 bus, the Asbury Road bus, I would not have had to park a couple of blocks away to get to your meeting because there were no parking spaces here. My last point is that I think we've made great strides in regional cooperation, although the decision not to even consider helping out the county with the census count kind of took me by surprise. I would like to think that that cooperation is going to continue. But again, I don't know when the last time any of you took the bus, but I'm happy to ride with you anywhere. We can start in downtown Erie, we can go up Peach Street, we can go Route 29, or we can take the Route 31 Frontier route, which is in my neighborhood, but where I see a lot of people from Millcreek coming on when I go to the city council meetings. Thank you.
We need it free. I'm serious.
Pardon me?
When would you like to do that?
I can't hear.
When would you like to do that? I'm very serious.
When would you like to do that?
Yeah, shoot me an email. We'll schedule it. I mean it.
Okay.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Mr. Anderson.
Mr. Anderson.
I know these people.
Good morning, Carl Anderson, 3830 Parade Boulevard in the city of Erie, here representing the 4th County Council District, which is in the Bell Valley area of Millcreek. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today, and always appreciate the opportunity to have a conversation with you folks. I know how it feels to be on the hot seat from time to time, so I appreciate the position that you're in. I do want to discuss, though, I guess 2 issues, because one had come up today, and I apologize if I've missed some meetings along the way where it seems that there's been some lack of communication that has occurred. Certainly, we welcome the comments that you made earlier, thanking the county for participating in ensuring that Millcreek Township begins to solve their water problems here. And we certainly want to continue to be a partner in ensuring Millcreek Township as part of Erie County. But as I look out on 26th Street, I see the cars going both ways. So I'm really a little stunned, particularly at the issue with the census program. I think that Mr. Groh had mentioned that all of the information was not here, so I hope that we can have that continued conversation and perhaps revisit that issue. Erie County Council had stepped forward, county government had stepped forward because, and then of course then the city of Erie, because we have an opportunity to get a matching grant from AGRA to fund this particular program. And we're hoping for 25% of that funding to come through the other municipalities throughout Erie County. $5,000 ask to Millcreek was thought to be a very reasonable ask, particularly if you divide it over 2 years, which is a minimum of $2,500. We know that in Erie County, the potential for miscount in the census could rise up to as much as 16%. And that severely impacts our federal funding. And we want to ensure doing everything we can to make sure that our communities do not lose that particular federal funding. That funding is estimated at $2,100 per missed person in the count. So it would not take very many people, less than 5, that would cover the cost of what Millcreek would bring forward. So perhaps we can have continued conversations, and I would be happy to do that with you at any time. In regards to the EMTA, I could certainly echo the comments that have been made here by many folks, but I think that we're also missing the larger picture. And transportation is changing throughout Pennsylvania. We are under an assault here in Erie County that we are going to either be an acquirer or we're going to be acquired. And we need to show continued collaboration and working together to ensure the rest of the state that we're in a strong position to be an acquirer that would be able to go out and acquire the municipalities around us in Crawford, Venango, and Warren County, rather than them swallowing us up. We're fighting now. We're fighting off the assault on the LIFT program.
Yeah, Council, what's the status on that? Is there I understand the way funds are being distributed are being drastically impacted in Harrisburg. Is CCAP involved in advocating against those changes, or?
You're talking about the LIFT program?
Right.
Yeah, CCAP is fighting, CCAP is fighting for the state not to privatize the LIFT program and to ensure that communities
It's a ridiculous
still
thing to
have
do,
that
yeah.
control. But the entire way in which transportation is being viewed throughout the state is changing again. We'll continue to fight those issues. I know we're all trying to fight them together when we can, but we need to show our strength and our collaboration as much as we can to ensure that we can fight off those issues. So I am certainly available anytime, as you guys know, to meet, and appreciate your reconsidering these issues and these funding requests as we move forward and continue to be able to have more conversations about this. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in regard to? I'm sorry, who spoke out there? I'm sorry, sir, could you come forward, please? I'm sorry to... Please come forward here. I need to have you on camera, and we need your name and address for a record. Please, I'm sorry to have you do this, sir. Okay, we do have an area for you to sit at, and she'll... Okay. God bless the First Amendment. Yep. Okay, you can wait till you get up here, and then you can speak then, sir.
My name is David Tom. I live at 956 West 2nd Street. That's known as the Warren Walderstein Apartments.
Mm-hmm.
Or some of you might know it better as the original Erie Independence House.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
You know, I've used the lift for many years, and Millcreek has a lot to offer. The mall, you know, I enjoy going to the mall, spending money, and I'm also a board member of Voices for Independence, and it would make it hard for me to get to the meetings and any place in Millcreek, you know, if the routes are cut. So I want to agree with all the things that were said by the other people about the lift. And the way I look at it, you would be setting people with disabilities in this area. I don't want to be too melodramatic about it, but you would be setting them way back, maybe to the dark ages, because there are many people in the Millcreek area and Erie area that are, you know, dependent on the lift. And in terms of this conversation, there are two kinds of people: the presently disabled and the disabled. And you can become a member of the disabled population anytime, by many means. And everybody grows old, and I'm not, you know, I'm not encouraging this to happen, but someday you might lose your license or the ability to drive. And when you don't have the ability to drive, the lift becomes both a blessing and something that's extremely necessary. And as you've already heard, that there are people that, I'm sure some of them live in Erie, but they work in Millcreek. And, you know, you don't want to take that tax money away. And so I just encourage you to reconsider this, and remember, you may not be a member of the disability community yet. And believe me, I've had cerebral palsy all my life, and I'm 58. So I'm not wishing a disability on anybody, because you as a walker can help me, you know. But I'm saying that might come, and someday you might be, I hope not, but as dependent on the lift as I am. And, you know, we all have the right to the pursuit of happiness. And as a person who suffers from depression, the lift helps me travel many different places, which helps my depression, or helps my mood. So I strongly wish you would reconsider the budget, and I wish those other municipalities you talk about, or that we're talking about, would contribute. But, you know, you need to contribute at the same level, I believe, as you can. And, you know, this would have very bad consequences to me and the rest of this disability community. So thank you for your time, and I don't want to be too redundant, but I've already been somewhat redundant. But, you know, I want you to consider this you know, with as much thought and care as you can. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
My name is Amy Chikaki. I come to you today as a resident and the transportation liaison for Voices for Independence. I am asking that you reconsider this issue due to the simple fact that there are, as you just heard, there are a lot of consumers that will be affected by this. And I'm asking that you reconsider everything that was said. I'm inviting you, every one of you on the supervisory board, to come and spend a day with me to see what it's like to ride the lift, answer phone calls of consumers wondering, am I going to lose my bus service? What am I going to do? How am I going to get to the Millcreek Mall? How am I going to get to work? I invite every one of you to spend the day with me on transit to experience what it's like. When I first got hired at Voices for Independence, I had to ride the lift and bus everywhere I went because I did not have my own vehicle. So therefore, I had to ride to consumers' houses that were in Millcreek, that were in Erie, that were everywhere in the surrounding the city. Even now, even when I don't have an attendant available to drive me around to where I need to go, I depend on the Lyft. If Lyft service goes away, I can't even imagine how much I'm gonna have to explain to consumers that I'm sorry, you can't go anywhere. There's nothing that can be done. So I'm asking each and every one of you to spend the day with me to see what I have to endure on a daily basis. The other day, I got a phone call from a very upset consumer that didn't leave their name, literally screaming on my voicemail, telling me that their transit cannot go away because that is the only way they can get around. And unfortunately, they did not leave a name or number to where I could get back to them. But as the transportation liaison and as somebody who uses transit, please reconsider. And I'm asking each and every one of you on this Board of Supervisors to spend the day with me to see what it's actually like, what we go through on a daily basis. It's not easy. One trip, I may be on the Lyft bus for 2 hours. Just one trip. But you know what? It gets me out of my home, into my community, independence, away from people. Because sometimes, I'm going to be honest, sometimes I don't want anybody around me because we all like our alone time. So that is my way of, even if I don't have transportation, sometimes I will take the lift because I don't need an attendant to go. I don't want an attendant to go. So consider those factors as well. Consider people that are in nursing facilities, that the nursing facilities rely on the lift or public transportation to get their residents to and from their doctor's appointments. Not every nursing facility has their own transportation. So I'm asking once again that you reconsider, and I would be happy to meet with any one of you to shadow me for a day to see what it's like to use the EMTA system.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
What are you doing tomorrow? Tomorrow morning, what time do you get to work?
8 o'clock.
I'll see you then.
Okay.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Sir?
Bob Bach, 4632 Darcy Drive, Millcreek.
Yes.
Vice President of the Board of Voices for Independence. I think it's pretty clear that the mission of the organization is a simple one. We want people with disabilities to stay viable within the community, to use the community outside of institutions. That's our primary reason for existing. We make that possible. We're an ongoing resource for those folks. There's a huge disconnect between the able-bodied community and the disability community. So I'm here to tell you it's a mistake to do this, to even threaten that there might be a reduction in funding for the only kind of transportation many of these people have. We spoke to Mr. Bach about that the other day. I think what we're asking here, just to clarify it one more time, is I think we'd like you to revisit this vote, which I know has already been taken, but I'd like you to reconsider it. Clearly, I voted for all three of you guys, you know, but Millcreek didn't hire you because you're perfect. They hired you to make judgments on issues based on facts that you have. And clearly, you need more facts before you do this to the disability community. What we're asking for now is some kind of an impact study or some kind of public hearing. I went to Boscov's yesterday just to see if they knew that this might be pending. I spoke to their HR director. She says, oh, we can't lose our bus service. She said, we have a significant number of employees that they do a nice thing there. They build their work schedules around their bus arrivals. And that's how important it is for them to get people who ride the bus, you know, to come out to the mall. Now, I struggle with hearing. I have a hearing impairment, so I didn't hear everything. This is a pretty quiet place.
We have been hearing that in the last couple of meetings.
Yeah.
I don't know if we've got our tech guys looking at that. We've been hearing about.
Well, the sound system has been pretty poor since this was built.
You know, and for people with average or even below average hearing, it may be still okay, but it was a struggle for me today. In fact, I'm going to a hearing aid clinic tomorrow and having my hearing tested again. So please bear with me. I may be commenting on something that I didn't hear right, you know. But nonetheless, I think all we're asking for here today is that you might have a better understanding of the people who are impacted by this decision. These are people who live and work in Millcreek. Voices for Independence is one of the leading employers of people with disabilities. And the number of people who receive services at our place, because it's an open community center. John, you're welcome there. So are you, John, and Jim. Anytime you want to stop out, we'd love for you to take a tour of the place so you can better understand what we understand, especially in relation to what the needs are being discussed here today. So that's the only thing I'm asking today, and I think the only thing we're asking is we'd like you to revisit this, give it more time. It sounds to me like you still have some information to get back and forth between you and EMTA. What I did hear was that there's not good communication there. So that's all I'm asking. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bach.
Thank you, Mr. Bach.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? If you would please identify yourself for the record. Sign on the sheet there if you would. Is there a sheet there? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, the sheet, I'm sorry, the sheet's over here. I'm sorry there.
I guess it's good afternoon.
It is afternoon now.
I will be brief. Jody Shurston. I live at 1833 West 52nd Street. Delightful neighborhood, wonderful place to be in Millcreek. A few years ago, I said, you know, I'm thinking of moving to Millcreek. Well, I finally did, so that was in 2012. I don't know if this particular aspect has been spoken of. However, you have the disability community, but that also encompasses aging population. And I can see from, you know, the looks of you and me that we're kind of heading that way. Everybody heads into aging.
I'm not doing it well, I can tell you that.
Yeah, neither am I. And
Except Hannah.
well, there are some of us that are older, like my mom. She is 84. She lost her license last week. It's a heavy blow. You know how it is when your driving is not allowed anymore.
Yep. Sorry.
And I'm emotional because I'm human.
That's right.
And we all are. To have options like Uber may or may not work, okay? Especially when all of us will decline to some degree of disability. We may need power lifts and stuff for chairs. That's kind of a little sobering, you know? I remember Shauna, my friend, one time asked me to move an electric wheelchair. Boy, was that an experience. And I kept running into walls and all that. Now, you know, if you're doing that and then you have to rely on, you know, transportation, you need transportation to be able to accommodate people that, A, aren't allowed to drive, or, like me, probably can't drive at some point. So, again, the other aspect is you've got Millcreek really kind of booming. You've got the Peach Street, Upper Peach Street, you've got all kinds of business and whatever. Cutting out a segment of the population that spends money, that's kind of an issue too. I mean, my mom is in her golden years. If she doesn't have transportation to the Walmart and the Best Buy and all that, well, then that cuts down on the revenue you guys get from taxes. So that's kind of a consideration as well. So that is my plea, that you would follow with the recommendation of revisiting the issue, revisiting the vote, sitting down with constituents and perhaps, you know, an advocacy group that's really looked into and experienced this. So I'm not going to keep you from lunch anymore. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Make 1 second call on if there's anyone else that would like to speak. Sir? Young lady? Somebody? Okay. Please come forward. And if you'd be kind enough to sign the sheet and identify yourself for the record.
Thank you for letting me speak and for your time. I appreciate it. I'm Heidi Dukic. I live at 1547 West 24th Street. And I know this has been spoken of for a while now. I just want to reiterate the importance of the lift system and the bus system. And I hope that you will reconsider any potential cuts that maybe you may be thinking of at this point. This
definitely obviously impacts the disability community, but it also impacts aging individuals and younger folks. I have a daughter who is 20 years old, and she has several friends. They still use the bus. They don't all have their own cars. Some live in Millcreek, some live in Erie. They use the bus to get to college. They use the bus to get to the mall, to the beach. It's pretty significant to them, their way of getting around, so that they have their independence and they have the ability to work. They have the ability to have some fun in their community, and I just hope that you'll reconsider that for, for all of the people that will be affected, all the way from teenagers and up. It's important to many, many people, and I do realize that you have a difficult task of trying to, make sure all of the needs of the people in Millcreek are met, and I just am asking you to please reconsider any cuts that you might be thinking about with regard to the transportation, because there's the freedom aspect, but there's also the financial aspect, and both are equally important to those people that use those systems for those reasons. I thank you again for your time, and have a good day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Carol, please come on up.
How's it going, Chris?
Chris Gerhardt, Director, EMTA Lift. So far, hearing a lot of misconceptions about the relationship or the correlation of Lyft to EMTA. So just to clarify, Mr. Peterson was reluctant to say that there would be a right sizing or reduction. But with less funding, there will be. Ultimately, complementary paratransit would then suffer, either in geography or by hours of service. There's really no argument. So my staff went through, we counted so far 547 Millcreek businesses that would be impacted, that Lyft paratransit riders use every day. 143 doctors, Highmark, UPMC, Millcreek Hospital, 20 churches, 61 restaurants and counting, ACL lab, 5 of them, 195 businesses of all sorts. And this is just in counting. 22 centers and schools, 101 medical facilities, in addition to those 143 doctors' offices, of which my wife is one of them. There is a direct relationship. And it was spoken about the 3/4 mile corridor. So you take away a fixed route or reduce those hours, complementary paratransit service would disappear. The real conversation, I don't know why we're not having it, is, and we've heard it downstate, other communities are investing, they're increasing their contribution. Why isn't this be a leader instead of saying, why can't Albion pay more, or why can't Harbor Creek pay more? And they are. Why can't this conversation about being a leader lead the way in the community? Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gerhardt. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? I'll make a second call for that. Anyone else that would like to speak on any matter? Sir, if you would please. Yes.
I was here a couple meetings ago and I asked if EMT had contacted you. And I was told then, no. Now everyone's here in passion, and it's great, but initially, didn't this all start trying to make a point that Millcreek has been paying for years more than their fair share, and the other municipalities should jump in? I think everyone's forgetting that Millcreek doesn't want to end service, they just want everyone else to pitch in. And at least that's the perception I've seen at prior meetings. And it's great, this passion and everyone has. Have they gone to all the other municipalities and given all those other supervisors a hard time? I haven't seen anything on the news. And I just want to say that I think you guys are put in a bad position and it's being played improperly. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
Hello, everyone. My name is Valerie Perkins. I'm a living well specialist with Voices for Independence. And 5 years ago, when I was initially hired by Voices, I definitely used the public transportation to visit all of my consumers. Since that time, I've gotten my own vehicle. However, the question I have right now is, what is the next step? Okay, everyone's come up and given a passionate plea, begging you guys to please reconsider. So does someone have to propose that you reconsider formally now, or do we just leave and nothing happens?
Okay. I'll be talking about that in a minute or two. I was going to give you your time there.
That's all I wanted to say.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, then. Thank you.
I can say that the last time this meeting was brought up, I think 6 weeks ago, we asked the EMTA to come back with another proposal and to demonstrate that they are making equitable requests of all municipalities, and we would consider funding more at that time. But all their response has been is, well, no, you give us the money first, and then we'll go ask everybody else. So I don't think that's really negotiating good faith. So my position has been and continues to be, if they are requesting every other municipality that receives funding, receives service, some level of funding, we haven't said what it was, just if they can even demonstrate they've had these same conversations that we're having today with the other municipalities receiving service, I'd be more than open to considering increasing our contribution. But to date, all we've heard is how we should just keep the status quo, and that's not something that encourages me to reconsider. But Mr. Gerhart was kind enough to share all this information in a public meeting. He did not share that to me when I talked to him on the phone last Friday. He has not scheduled a private meeting with me to have these kinds of discussions. So those are the things I would look forward to having, rather than something like this for reconsideration.
Absolutely sounds like a great idea.
Thank
And again, I agree with someone else who said, how about you guys take the lead and be the example? Okay, we're willing to listen. I appreciate that you said you are willing to listen. And talk with those who have the facts and the statistics.
Well, and I want to clarify, and if you don't mind.
Sure.
I have brought this issue up to other municipal officials, and I've had other township supervisors say to me, we'd be happy to contribute, but no one's ever asked us.
Okay.
So that's why it's a little, I think, disingenuous, some of the information being provided this evening, or this afternoon now. Also, I am very familiar with Lyft service and how it works. I actually served on the Lyft's Elderly and Disabled Council for 10 years, serving for the county. So I'm very aware of how instrumental the service is and how it operates, which is why I do take it a little bit, probably too close to heart when I hear about route cuts and how it's going to impact Lyft services, because I know how the funding works. I know how, and what's being presented today is inaccurate at best. And I really find it troubling that persons associated with the EMTA are really trying to really scare people in ways that is not a legitimate threat. And I just want to make that statement out there that we certainly have no intention of taking actions that would be a detriment to the elderly or disabled in our community, or to folks who rely on public transit. And I think it's being tremendously overstated how much our contribution is going to impact service. And I'm very open to having conversations with Mr. Gerhardt and Mr. Peterson if they care to schedule those meetings to discuss what a fair and equitable contribution from us and all the other municipalities would be.
Thank you so much for that explanation. Looks like we could all benefit from educating from one another.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Anyone else? Okay. I guess it's my turn, just quickly, and I'm going to bore my two colleagues to my left and my right. So start taking your pot shots when you have the chance, guys. When we voted on this, I agree, we need to come up with a formula. EMTA needs to get out there and start telling people, you need to help out. Tell the other municipalities, help out. We need to come up with a viable formula that's fair and equitable to everybody. We came up with the 1/15th formula, which is the only thing at that time that we had. That is true. I supported that. I got to hear about it the next day from other elected officials asking what we were doing to them. And that was the term, what were we, Millcreek Township, doing to them by underfunding? City of Corey, $8,000 they fund. That's just one example for you. List goes on and on. And yes, it appears that, and please, Mr. Peterson and anybody from Voices for Independence, it seems like a threat, and I understand that there. I don't react to threats, but what I do react to is what we have as moral obligations. Not everything that the township is obligated to do is found on a spreadsheet. There are moral and ethical obligations that we should do because we are supposed to be human beings. What we're doing here, I think, and I believe that we need to get this thing reopened. I don't know how my colleagues are going to be, and for lack of a term, this is political pun here, I'm not throwing them under the bus, by no means. I do hope that we can get something going here and have some serious dialogue, because what we have is we started poking EMTA in the eye. It's not a good way to start talking. But now that we have the attention, maybe we can start doing things and moving forward. And yes, like probably everybody here at the board, we've had somebody who has become disabled. My late father, I told about the story a couple meetings ago about him requiring the lift services for his last 3 years of life. And just as the one gentleman here said, you never know how that can happen. The day before my father's surgery, in which he suffered a stroke, he was playing golf. Next day he had surgery and suffered a stroke and spent the rest of his 3 years remaining of life in a wheelchair. It was a pretty bad situation for all involved. So rather than get to the emotional part of their tugging on heartstrings, I know this is what the people have done here. You've got my attention. You had my attention a long time ago. I hope that we can revisit this matter and sit down with cool heads, because cool heads always prevail in this thing, and quit having an antagonistic approach to it. And I guess I'm going to apologize, and I don't care what anybody says about this. It seems like Millcreek, we're making a real good political moat around us here. Mr. Anderson, who I've disagreed with on a couple things there, and Carl, you know that. We've disagreed about some things. But one thing he said, Ed, is so true, collaboration. I don't see collaboration going on here. I think, oh God, we don't want to work with anybody. I'm going to ask you, Mr. Peterson, please contact us. You and your board members, somebody get a hold of us, all three of us supervisors. We want to sit down and talk. Well, let me not go that far. I want to know what my colleagues have to say about discussing this. Mr. Bach, you want to talk?
Sure.
Okay. John, you want to talk with him?
I think I just said that. Yeah.
I know. Okay. We've got it. Please contact us. I don't want to be so emphatic about it, but we need to talk. Get this matter solved. Anybody else want to say something? Jim?
I'll briefly say something.
Please. Please talk. I'm tired of talking.
Being new to the board, when this was brought to me for Millcreek to contribute $20,000 plus 5%, my question as an elected official, and I think everyone in the township would want us to be good stewards of the dollars that we have, is why? Why $20,000? Just because it was asked for in the past? So I'm fine with being up here and taking shots for, in your mind, under contributing. I'm fine with that. Go ahead, give me the shots, I don't care. But the point is, we never received proper reasons why we should contribute $20,000 again. It was just, well, that's what you've given before, so let's give it again. Doesn't work that way anymore. Okay, we're going to be good stewards of the money, and we're going to move forward. I hope we do have further conversations. We're open to that. We're not just going to blanketly cut a check because we're asked for it. There has to be justification for that. Thank you.
John, anything else you want to say?
No, I think I said my piece previously, and I
Okay.
echo Jim's comments and
Okay.
welcome any additional conversation that the staff of EMTA would like to have with us at a date of their convenience.
Sounds good. Let's adjourn.
So moved.
12:28.